The clown returned to his soul. This movie Luo Wen knows that it is about a pervert murderous clown. It takes killing children as fun and leaves a shadow of oppressive horror on the children's childhood. The clown in the movie does not explain its true origin, and it is not sure whether it is a human or a ghost. But Luo Wen now draws a clown. There is no doubt that it is a real ghost. A collection of resentment, a cruel and evil demon. Now, in the darkness in front of Luo Wen, a figure stood so quietly. He looks funny, his face is covered with white powder, and he is dressed as a circus clown. Holding a balloon in his hand, the balloon floats quietly in the air, drifting with the wind in the prison. Obviously, the image of the clown in the circus will bring joy to people, but he can't feel it at all, but there is an inexplicable sense of depression. Even more, watching the clown will make his whole body hairy in both eyes, as if he would suddenly turn into a bloody slaughter by a ghost in the next second. Master, what's your order? The clown opened his mouth with a hoarse voice, like a blunt knife cutting meat. Luo Wen was about to speak. Suddenly there were footsteps around. This is eternal hell. Usually, there are no people coming. This time, the footsteps are very dense. Judging from the footsteps alone, Luo Wen knows that many people have come. So lively. Luo Wen let the clown go away temporarily, and turned to look outside the cell. Now, the door of eternal hell was opened by the jailer. With the help of light coming from outside, it is vaguely visible that one by one, there are more than 10 people walking in. Is the 6th floor so lively these days? Nine Tails shook her head. Hey, come here, is our 6th floor prison loses dignity? Chout grinned strangely, although he was laughing coldly. The 6th floor has become lively, Ace, Jinbei, weirdos who love to tell ghost stories, bahehehe, closed for 30 years, this year is really lively. Someone in the dark giggled, like a madman grinning. In the voice, a figure approached. All in white suits, everyone has a different mask on his face, without any emotional fluctuations, revealing an icy atmosphere from the inside out, repelling others thousands of miles away. Tisk. It turns out to be a white mouse from the world government, seeing that their good mood for a day is gone. In the cell, someone gave a light mouthful, and his eyes were full of disgust when he looked at the incoming person. At this moment, many people recognized it. This time, it was not the guards or new prisoners who came to the 6th floor, but the CP0 under the command of the world government. They accepted the task of interrogating Luo Wen and got an extra task, to kill Luo Wen altogether after the interrogation. This time, there are 13 CP0s here. The commander-in-chief of the whole army, Kong, failed to capture the female ghost. This made them very cautious. They had to pry out a solution to the white-clothed ghost from Luo Wen's mouth, and even tortured them severely when necessary. Take him to the interrogation room. The leader of the CP0 team stopped in front of Luo Wen's cell, and looked at Luo Wen sitting on the bed coldly. Luo Wen glanced at them. Without saying anything, they let them take themselves to the interrogation room. Impel Down's interrogation room was harsher than any prison. The walls around the room were covered with various instruments of torture. A whip can draw off a fleshy iron whip, a blood-stained hammer that smashes prisoners' teeth and fingers and toes, and a knife that can knock off the flesh and blood of prisoners without letting people die. And in the center of these instruments of torture with a strong bloody smell, there is an ordinary chair, without any mechanism, but it is just an ordinary chair, which makes people feel more frightened. Everyone knows what is waiting for oneself after sitting in a chair. Now, Luo Wen came to this interrogation room under the escort of CP0. Facing the instruments of torture hanging on the surrounding walls, and the faint smell of blood in the air, Luo Wen was unmoved, walked to the middle chair and sat down peacefully. His hands were handcuffed, and when he sat down with his back leaning on the chair, Erlang's legs were lifted, his expression indifferently as if he had returned to his home. You are calm now, and wait for you to cry. The leader of the CP0 team sneered. Immediately, he turned his head to look at his companion and said, "Prepare the videophone worm and record everything he said. Hear the words." CP0 next to it took out a small and exquisite videophone worm, pressed the power button, the snail poked its head out of its shell, and looked at Luo Wen with dim eyes. "Record, start. You should know what we are asking you about." The CP0 team leader glanced at Luo Wen, got up and walked to the torture table. "You said, which instrument of torture should be used against you? How about this knife that can cut 3,000 knives on you without killing you?" While talking, the CP0 team leader picked up a knife that was as thin as a cicada's wings and could divide the prisoner's flesh and blood. It seems to be to reinforce the fear in Luo Wen's heart. The CP0 team leader slowed down, put down the knife, and picked up the blood-stained hammer. Or a hammer that can smash teeth in one click? He turned his head, glanced at Luo Wen with Erlang's legs tilted in the seat, and smiled. Forget it. Let's use it together. The voice fell. Several CP0s walked up at the same time. One of them picked up the same torture instrument and walked towards Luo Wen. However, just then, Luo Wen, who was leaning on the seat, suddenly smiled. What makes you laugh now? The CP0 team leader frowned. He now feels that Luo Wen seems to be a bit sick. Because, Luo Wen's gaze crossed the CP0 team leader and looked further back. Feel the direction of Luo Wen's line of sight. The CP0 team leader frowned. Looking behind me? The CP0 team leader turned his head suspiciously. This look. Make him stunned. Do not know when. Behind the CP0 team leader, a clown holding a balloon stood silently. He has heavy makeup, pale skin, a weird curvature of his mouth, and he is smiling silently with his head tilted. After Luo Wen was taken into the interrogation room, the prisoners of eternal hell looked at the closed door of the interrogation room if they had no sight. They are no strangers to this interrogation room, and some people have gone in to experience it for themselves. Eternal hell's prisoners all committed heinous crimes. The reason why they were not executed but imprisoned here is that a large part of the reason is that these unscrupulous strong men on the sea have some secrets themselves, and the world government keeps them here, in order to pry these secrets out of their mouths. Therefore, the methods of the interrogation room are so fierce that even if they just look at it, their whole body will tremble. Hey, guess how long this weird guy who likes to tell ghost stories can last? There was a joke in the dark. Who knows, but I am looking forward to hearing that kid's screams. Another small prisoner giggled, looking at the interrogation room with full of expectation, gloating to see Luo Wen suffer. What? Suddenly, the high-pitched scream sounded. Hey, it's a waste, so early. Huh. The short prisoner licked his lips, and was about to mock, and suddenly paused. He noticed something wrong. It's not his voice. Nine-Tails squinted her eyes and made a judgment instantly. At the same time, in the depths of the eternal hell, in the special cell, the old figure bound by chains all moved, and hundreds of chains trembled at the same time. He opened his eyes. The scarlet eyes turned slightly, and finally landed in the direction of the door of the interrogation room. He smelled blood. Clang clang. Suddenly, inside the door of the interrogation room, someone slammed the door frantically, and at the same time the screams inside became more screaming, as if the people inside wanted to escape like crazy. The strong smell of blood diffused from the interrogation room. This scene excited some pervert prisoners in the cage. The smell of blood can't be wrong. Ah, whose blood is Luo Wen, or who? I really want to go up and touch the blood in person. Ha 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 ha, blood, see blood again, interesting, interesting. They smelled the blood, pulled the chains, walked out of the darkness, grabbed the iron cage railings. Their faces were crazy and excited. Shut up, pervert bastards. Nine-Tails Hudimai turned her head and scolded. These idiots pervert disturbed her interest in the theater. Then, she looked at the interrogation room again, with dim light flickering in her eyes, which was curious about the next change. However, a period of calm passed. There was no sound from the interrogation room again. Many prisoners were stunned in the darkness. How could the violent movement just calm down so quickly? Another half-minute passed. Nine-Tails' eyes suddenly narrowed. She saw clearly. Dark red blood penetrated through the door of the interrogation room. Sticky and rich, it soon stained the ground red and piled up like puddles. Just then, the door handle of the interrogation room turned. A leg in boots stepped out and stepped on a pool of blood. Accompanied by the movement, the sound of handcuffs and chains sounded. Is Luo Wen? Every prisoner was shaking. Luo Wen raised his hands that were grilling the chains, and sorted out the clean striped prison uniform. Because of his movements, the chains rattled and his eyes looked at the CP0 team leader who fell to the ground and died when he was asked a question just now. It's funny to pretend to be in front of me. Finish this sentence. Luo Wen turned around, walked to his cell, opened the cell door to himself and walked in, as if he had returned home. Did you kill them all? At this time, Ace's voice suddenly sounded from behind Luo Wen. Hear the words. Luo Wen turned his head and looked. I didn't kill them. They were killed by a clown. Luo Wen said, closing the cell door by herself, locking it easily, and then sitting back on the sofa, picking up the warm teacup and taking a sip of tea. Clown? This answer makes Ace unknown so. This moment. In eternal hell, all the prisoners who were paying attention to Luo Wen's affairs remained silent, without any agitation. Everyone is watching Luo Wen silently. From being interrogated to screaming, he was the only one who finally came out. In this. What happened? Facing the darkness, one line of sight. Luo Wen's own tea tasting is like enjoying a good time of afternoon tea. At the same time, another place of impelled down. The 4th floor hot hell toilet. Magellan sat on the toilet, her stomach hurts and shit as usual. But recently, Magellan has been shit and irritating, and always feel restless. Mainly when he was shit, he could always hear movement outside the toilet door, such as the sound of tapping the ball, the laughter of little girls, the sound of flipping books during class, and all kinds of weird sounds that made Magellan shit. Both are uneasy. And Magellan shit this time, and there was another sound outside the toilet door. Gluck giggled. The little girl's laughter is from far to near, there is an inexplicable ethereal, as if she will appear in any corner of her sight in the next second. This time. Magellan made a swift decision. With a harder butt, he pinched off instantly. Without even pulling up his pants, he rushed out. Ghost. Magellan shouted. This time he must catch the ghost. However, Magellan rushed out, and the moment he saw the situation clearly, the whole person was like petrified. Outside the door, there was no little girl standing there. It's Sengoku who helps to catch ghosts together. The two big men looked at each other, and there was an embarrassment in the air. Huh. Why did you rush out suddenly? Sengoku was the first to break the embarrassment, but when he was speaking, his gaze was glaring at Magellan's chilly lower body. There was a ghost just now, didn't you see it outside? Magellan hurriedly pulled up his pants, the corners of his mouth twitched frantically, forcibly pretending that nothing had happened. No, Sengoku frowned. He hadn't noticed anything unusual when he was outside just now, but Magellan rushed out. Did something happen to him inside? Just when Sengoku was about to ask. At the corner, a man with wings on his back suddenly rushed out in a hurry. It is the commander of Impel Down, the blue orangutan, Saru Des. Director Magellan, Marshal Sengoku, you guys. Saru Des looked anxious, just about to speak, but suddenly stopped in the middle of the speech. What did he see? Magellan and Sengoku are two big men leaning at the door of the toilet, and Magellan is still carrying his pants. Seeing Sarude, who appeared suddenly and had a strange expression, he obviously wanted to get crooked. Magellan's eyelids jumped wildly, almost unstretched. Saru Des. Why are you here? Magellan asked with a cough to hide his embarrassment. As the commander of the blue orangutan, Sarude usually does not come to the 4th floor, and mainly patrols the first 3 floors. Director. Something went wrong in the waiting room. Sarudeus's face was ugly. The CP staff who came to the waiting room today. All of them just died somehow. What? Magellan's eyes rounded. It's Luo Wen. Today, the world government sent a group of CP personnel, some of whom are responsible for interrogating Luo Wen, while the other is staying in the waiting room to do some follow-up work. Magellan and Sengoku looked at each other. Both of them knew that just now the group of CP personnel in charge of interrogating Luo Wen passed by eternal hell, and the other people in charge of logistics in the waiting room died. Does this have nothing to do with Luo Wen? Magellan didn't believe it. Sengoku's face also changed. Another accident happened, and it was related to Luo Wen again. Where are the people who interrogated Luo Wen? Sengoku said, and he immediately thought of the group of CP personnel who went directly to Luo Wen. This. The people who will do the logistics processing later are all dead, they won't. Deputy Director Hanaibao went to see it, and it's still unsure of the situation. Sarude replied. Go to the waiting room. Magellan made a decisive decision, ignoring catching the toilet ghost kid, and ran towards the waiting room quickly. When he arrived in the waiting room, his face went down. I saw it. The door of the waiting room was slightly open, and blood spattered on the edge of the doorframe, and as soon as I walked in, it was a disgusting smell of blood. The ground was covered with stumps and broken arms, and there were fragments of internal organs everywhere. On the workbench, a head with only a half left hung on it, and it fell to the ground with the shock caused by Magellan's arrival. With a bang, half of his head exploded, and white brains flowed all over the floor. Vomit. A guard vomited on the spot when he saw this scene, and his face instantly paled. All the CP staff who stayed in the waiting room. Without a lifetime, they were all mutilated and brutally killed. Damn it. Magellan cursed in a low voice, his face became more ugly, and the situation was bad again. Previously, guards were haunted or prisoners died, but they were only a few sporadic, and the methods were not so cruel. This time, all the people in the house were all dead at once, and the scene was so tragic that even a complete body could not be found. At this moment, a phone worm with a gas mask rang in Magellan's arms. The people in the interrogation room are all dead. This is a call from Hannibal. At this moment, the Hannibal in another section of the phone worm seemed to be greatly shocked, and there was a slight tremor when speaking. I see. Heard the news. Even if Magellan was prepared, she was still shocked. Among the CP personnel who came this time, there were well-known strong ones. Magellan remembered that there was a strong one with the code name, White Elephant. This CP0 participated in the capture of the evil king, and played a vital role. In addition to him, several powerful CP0s came. After all, these are CP personnel who are going to interrogate the 6th-tier prisoners. The danger is self-evident, and it is impossible for the world government to send rubbish. But even so, they are still dead. At the same time, Magellan thought of another thing. The CP personnel who interrogated Luo Wen were all dead. So, what about Luo Wen? Where is Luo Wen? Where is the other person? Sengoku said at the same time, and he also thought of this at this time. The two did not stop at all, and quickly walked towards the 6th floor, and asked Hannibal at the other end of the phone worm, while quickly walking towards the 6th floor. Both of them were worried that after Luo Wen killed him, they hid in a corner of Impel Down, and were even planning to escape from prison. Luo Wen. In the cell. The phone worm opened his mouth, and Hannibal's weird voice rang. The words came out. Magellan's footsteps are noticeable. The cell? Didn't those CPS take Luo Wen to the interrogation room? Went. But he walked out of the interrogation room by himself later, and the guys on the 6th floor told me that Luo Wen walked out of the interrogation room by himself, then opened his cell and moved in again. Magellan's eyelids twitched. This news was even more unacceptable to Luo Wen than Luo Wen hiding and plotting to escape from prison. Where is Impel Down? The most feared prison in the world can be said to have come and go, and it is impossible to escape. No one doesn't want to go out after entering Impel Down, but even if they try everything they can't escape. But now, in front of Luo Wen, there is a chance to escape from prison, but he gave up and walked back to the cell by himself. Magellan looked ugly when he thought of this. Is this the prison? This is a naked contempt for Impel Down's majesty. Hannibal, don't go to Luo Wen. I'll rush over right now. Don't go and find him, have you heard? Magellan was serious and stopped Hannibal hard. He was worried that Hannibal would just rush to find Luo Wen about an accident. Luo Wen was too weird and didn't know the details of the other party. You come to the 6th floor exit right now, don't go near him. Magellan warned again, and after finishing speaking, strode towards Eternal Hell with Sengoku. The 6th floor, Eternal Hell. The door was opened again. The prisoners in the dark have recently felt numb. Maybe no one came for half a year, but now almost everyone in Tenten has come. As soon as Sengoku and Magellan entered the Eternal Hell, they immediately walked towards Luo Wen's cell without stopping. Now, in the dim cell, a candle was ignited, and the flame swayed full of resilience, as if it could continue to burn forever like this. The faint candlelight illuminates the man's side face. He sat on the sofa, adjusted his posture, picked up the remote control at hand, and pressed it to the front TV. The TV, which was clearly not connected to the circuit and signal, actually turned on, and it played out the picture. Magellan, who saw this scene, wanted to talk, so he immediately caught the owner. This Luo Wen actually watched TV in prison. Where did the TV come from? Director Magellan, Marshal Sengoku, are you here? Luo Wen turned his head, after knowing, and said a word to Magellan, and then randomly picked up an orange from the fruit bowl on the table. Just peeled it in front of Magellan. You killed them? Magellan took a deep breath, resisting the urge to explode. No, Luo Wen threw a piece of orange peel into the trash can and shook his head. The ghost did it. Luo Wen took out the white silk on the surface of the orange pulp and peeled it cleanly. The ghost did it. Luo Wen's answer echoed faintly in the darkness of Eternal Hell. Ha 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 ha. A ghost again. Hearing these words, the prisoners in Eternal Hell burst out laughing. Jinbei couldn't help shaking his head and smiled bitterly. I didn't expect to see such a scene built and seen on the seabed of the world government. Personally speaking, this sentence is a joke, a ridicule of Magellan, or a ghost. It is not a serious conversation at all. But this word came out of Luo Wen's mouth, And it has another meaning, because Luo Wen is really related to ghosts. It's that girl ghost. Magellan, no matter what other people thought, he was looking for her today and flushed out before he even finished using the toilet. However, before Magellan could think for a second, Luo Wen's voice interrupted him. Not. Luo Wen finished peeling the orange, raised his hand and swept the white silk on the orange peel and pulp into the trash can, got up to wash his hands, and turned his head to look at Magellan. Hearing this sentence, all the surrounding voices stopped. Sengoku's heart jumped. The toilet girl ghost and the white ghost girl are already very difficult to deal with. Now there are new ghosts appearing? No? There are new ghosts? Magellan frowned and immediately asked, "What the hell is it?" Luo Wen didn't lift his head when he heard the words, and while washing his hands, he said, "I don't know, but it looks like a pervert clown." "You don't know? If you don't know that ghost, how could the ghost not kill you?" Hannibal was interrupted by Magellan in the middle of speaking, not letting him continue. "Let's go." Magellan waved his hand irritably, turning around and leaving. Hearing Luo Wen's words, Magellan also understood in his heart, there is no need to keep asking. Sengoku took a deep look at Luo Wen, who was washing his hands, and left without saying much. They all know. Luo Wen didn't want to talk about this matter, and there was no result if he continued to ask. As for the interrogation, the corpse of the CP officer in the interrogation room is still cold. Hannibal lowered his head, his face was filled with aggrieved expressions. He really hated this feeling. He knew that the person in front of him had a problem, but he couldn't keep asking. "Ha ha ha ha, Hannibal, I just want to laugh when you look down on your head." "Hannibal, what's the matter? If Luo Wen can't help it, go back and find your mother." The prisoners around him ridiculed mercilessly, and the laughter was so harsh that it reached Hannibal's ears and made him tremble with anger. It seems to be unwilling. Hannibal couldn't help but look back at Luo Wen's cell. Looking at it at a glance, Hannibal almost exploded in place. I saw that Luo Wen washed his hands and walked into a curtain, and then there was the sound of splashing water. Is this going to take a bath? Hannibal felt like he was smoking. When will prisoners live this life? People like Luo Wen should be locked up, punished, and tortured instead of enjoying in prison. Director Magellan, I found a videophone worm in the interrogation room, which may have recorded the interrogation. At this moment, the guard of the interrogation room ran over, holding a phone worm in the standby state in his hand, a new discovery. Go and see. Magellan's eyes lit up and made a decisive decision. Soon, Magellan and Sengoku, as well as Hannibal and others, came to a clean room together. Everyone got together, staring closely at the videophone worm on the table. The videophone worm was turned on, its head poked out from its shell, its eyes shimmered, and the recorded footage was projected in midair. In the beginning, everything was normal. Luo Wen was taken into the interrogation room and sat on a chair. CP0 came up with the torture instrument. And just at the moment when they are about to act on Luo Wen, the head of a clown with heavy makeup suddenly appeared, and a face blocked all the pictures. He tilted his head, a face always grinning, and grinning silently towards the camera. At this time, there was no sound coming out of the video, even the original voice of CP0 and Luo Wen's dialogue disappeared, leaving only the clown facing the camera. Laughing, an inexplicable horror rose from the bottom of everyone's hearts. Unknowingly, a layer of goosebumps appeared on the arm. Next moment, Chi-Chi, the video screen flashes. The light from the eyes of the phone worm was dim, the snail retracted into its shell again, and the picture was interrupted. After watching the videotape, there was silence in the room. Sengoku's eyes flickered. Luo Wen didn't say panic, but a clown ghost did appear again, which made Sengoku a headache. The previous ghost has not been solved yet, and now there is another ghost who doesn't know what the details are. And the bloodthirsty level of this ghost is definitely more than that of the toilet girl ghost, which can be seen from the horror of the interrogation room. Clown. Red nose. Why does this guy look familiar? On the other side, Magellan fell into deep thought and suddenly whispered such a sentence. Wait, Magellan, did you think about it too? At this moment Hannibal said suddenly. What's the matter? Sengoku glanced sideways. In Impelled Down, a prisoner was originally imprisoned, and this prisoner looked like this clown with a big red nose. Magellan remembered completely, there was indeed such a clown prisoner in Impelled Down, and he was imprisoned on the first floor. Is Luo Wen really not a lie? He really doesn't know this ghost? Isn't this ghost the clown prisoner being locked in? They look so alike. Hannibal slapped his head, as if suddenly resuscitated. Yes, maybe it is really like this. Very good. If I can successfully catch the ghost this time, I will have the greatest credit. Magellan can abdicate from the director. With this credit, I will surely succeed in becoming the director. Hannibal thought about himself crookedly, and when he thought of his witty discovery of the truth, and, naturally, becoming the director, he was so excited that he was going to climax. The clown prisoner you are talking about. On which floor is it? Sengoku asked suddenly. He has no memory of any clown prisoner. As Martial Marine, he has captured many pirates and he has seen many pirates. It is impossible for everyone to remember. First floor. Hannibal said, patting his chest. The corners of Sengoku's mouth twitched. Are you serious? Can the prisoners on the first level kill those CP0? Sengoku wanted to say something, but when he thought that Luo Wen was just enough to be imprisoned on the second floor, he didn't say anything. What if? It's a pervert again. Let's go, take me to see him, and I will interrogate him myself. Magellan said, already standing up. No matter what, it's not wrong to go and see. At the same time Sengoku and Magellan headed to the first floor. Luo Wen took off his striped prison uniform after taking a shower and put on a suit and leather shoes. The handcuffs were randomly discarded by him. This kind of thing can never restrain Luo Wen, it's nothing more than whether he wants to take it off. It's much refreshing after the shower. Luo Wen stretched his body and whispered to himself, it's time to do business next. Finished. Luo Wen walked to the bed, pulled up the quilt and lay down, closing his eyes comfortably. This scene was seen by Jinbei in the opposite cell. Go to bed so early. Jinbei was taken aback. He just saw Luo Wen change his clothes. He thought he was going to do something big next, and ended up lying on the bed to sleep. Luo Wen certainly didn't want to sleep. Before closing his eyes, he glanced at the direction of the interrogation room one last time. If you want to kill me, you have to pay a little price. 5 elders, which one to look for? Now. The prisoner in the next cell suddenly heard that Luo Wen seemed to be humming a song. If you click on you, whoever you click on, that's who. The low and weird tone reverberates faintly in the dark cell. What is this guy humming? The eyelids of the prisoner next door twitched slightly. He always felt that the tone was weird and had a creepy feeling. Hey hey hey, who do you know? However, his voice, in eternal hell, was like a dead stone, and no one responded. The questioning prisoner narrowed his mouth, rolled over uninterestingly, and went on to sleep, ignoring Luo Wen's humming tune. Holy Land, Marie Joy's, luxury bungalows, right inside. On the sofa, 5 high-ranking 5 elders each sat in one position, and the army commander stood in front of them, reporting on what happened last night. Just in the middle of the empty report, the door between rights was knocked. Master 5 elders, the information from Impel Down came over. All the people who went to interrogate Luo Wen were dead. 1. None of them survived. The CP staff rushed in, his face turned pale, and he spoke out the information that had just arrived in disbelief. As soon as this remark came out, the audience was quiet for an instant. Did it all? The blonde 5 elders looked ugly. They didn't underestimate Luo Wen, and it would not be a big problem for the powerful sent to destroy a pirate group with a bounty of 20 E. However, even so, all the CP personnel who went there were dead. You must know that this is not a direct battle with Luo Wen, but an interrogation in Impel Down. The difference between the two is vastly different. At the same time, this also proves Luo Wen's difficulty. The most urgent thing is to find a way to solve those ghosts, so you go on talking. Nagabe 5 elders waved his hand, motioning for the interrupted Sora to continue. Last night, I saw not just one ghost, but 2, one big and one small. Kong Shen took a deep breath and continued to report. Tell everything that happened last night, in detail. 2 female ghosts. Nagabe 5 elders frowned after hearing the empty report. This matter cannot be kept secret. It is estimated that the roots will soon spread in Marie Joy's, which will inevitably make many celestial dragons uneasy. 1 female ghost is scary enough, but now there are 2, and no one knows when they will come. The celestial dragons outside also scolded for Sora's failure. Some people curse empty space as rubbish, and the commander-in-chief of the whole army can't catch a ghost, but under the curse, they are more timid. There is really no sense of security anymore. You will be killed by ghosts in the Holy Land. The key is that there is no way to get ghosts. There are even a batch of celestial dragons, secretly considering whether to leave the Holy Land temporarily. Thinking of these things, even 5 elders have a headache. which is a shame for them. The reason why Marie Joy's is called a holy place, besides living here as a high-powered person, it means more sacred and inviolable. But now the Holy Land has been haunted many times, and a lot of celestial dragons have died. It can be said that the name Holy Land has long been misplaced. Do you think of a solution to ghosts? Dao Pao 5 elders put one hand on his chin, and his gaze swept across the 5 elders present. After a short silence, 5 elders with curly hair on crutches flickered. Luo Wen. The problem lies with Luo Wen. Even if the ghost is not his, it has something to do with him. This is certain. To get rid of him, it's a bit difficult to handle. 5 elders were muffled. Kong is not good at dealing with ghosts, and now everyone who kills Luo Wen has been killed by ghosts. This proves from the side that Luo Wen may have the ability to manipulate ghosts. They don't know Luo Wen's situation now. If you rashly let people go in the past and continue to deal with it, the likely result is that there will be no return. What they receive may not be a solution to the ghost, but more humiliating news. Suddenly, the blonde 5 elders spoke. In fact, you don't have to kill him, you can cooperate. With that said, the blonde 5 elders looked at a report. After the preliminary investigation was unsuccessful, the videotape on the marine side had been secretly sent to a pirate group by the CP staff, and it was now waiting for the result. However, the blonde 5 elders frowned when he said this. They have been dead for so many days, but in the end they chose to cooperate with Luo Wen. Isn't this a joke? At this moment, 5 elders, with a horn-like beard and scars on top of his head, raised his head and said slowly. There is nothing wrong, as long as the cooperation gets his ability. Horns and Beard's 5 elders, of course, is not simply collaborating with Luo Wen. He has 2 hands to prepare. One is to cooperate with Luo Wen to get some benefits, and the other is to kill Luo Wen. As for the affairs of Luo Wen, let Kong take care of it. However, it's not the empty hands, but the 6th floor. In response to the haunted 5 elders summit, the tone was finally set. On the surface, he tried to cooperate with Luo Wen, but actually made 2-handed preparations. Soon, the meeting was disbanded, and it was evening before I knew it. 5 elders left one after another. Horns and Beard's 5 elders walked at the end and returned home unhurriedly against the setting sun. When he came back, someone at home was already waiting for him. Grandpa St. Edward. A good-looking female celestial dragon saw 5 elders with horns and beards coming back, and immediately got up from her seat to greet her, apparently having been waiting for a long time. She is a relative of 5 elders with horns and beards. She came here and gave a lot of gifts, including valuable jewels. On the surface it is a gift, but in fact it is afraid of the haunting of the Holy Land. This time I came here specially to ask 5 elders, the horns and beards. Is the current Holy Land still safe? She really wanted to leave the Holy Land for a short time, she didn't dare to stay any longer. Roxani Palace, the holy place is very safe now, those ghosts have been controlled, don't worry too much. Bullhorn Beard relieved. He didn't say much, and after a few short words, he was sent away from Roxani Palace. After getting the affirmative answer, Roxani Palace really felt relieved. After all, the person who said these things to her was not someone else, but 5 elders. 5 elders, a high-ranking authority, speaks with absolute weight, and it is enough to make people feel at ease. After leaving Roxani Palace, Horns and Beard's 5 elders returned to the house. When passing by the living room, the corner of his eye gave a startling glimpse. And the color behind has changed drastically. See you. On the table in the living room, beside the gift from Roxani Palace, a black videotape was quietly placed. Moment. Horns and Beard's 5 elders blew up a layer of goosebumps all over, and instinctively went backwards. When he clearly remembered that this videotape had been destroyed as quickly as possible after catching ghosts in the air without any results. But why does it still appear? Grown-ups. The maid looked at 5 elders with horns and beard in amazement. It was the first time she saw this look on the face of this big man. Seemingly alert, seemingly frightened. Mobilize the strongest CP0 in this neighborhood. Let them rush over at the fastest speed. Destroy the videotapes on my table, including this house, and flatten them together, without leaving a trace. Horns and Beard's 5 elders quickly took out a special golden telephone bug from his pocket, and gave instructions very quickly. The moment the voice fell, the CP0 guarding the 5 elders' house or the edge of the Horns and Beards came in an instant. They guarded the 5 elders with the Horns and Beards at the fastest speed, protecting him from evacuation here. At the same time, the whole holy place rioted. More and more white figures appeared from various dark places, rushing to the house of 5 elders with horns and beards. They accepted the instruction to destroy the videotape as quickly as possible to ensure the safety of 5 elders with horns and beards. Even a large force appeared and began to demolish the bungalows. Oh my god, what's going on? Lord Edward Saint's house is shaking, and many CP0s are moving. What happened? Celestial Dragons, who noticed the movement of CP, was puzzled and didn't understand why it suddenly went into battle. It is clear that the wind is sunny and there is no sign of danger coming. But the next moment, they got the latest news. The real reason for the transfer of CP staff. It was a videotape that had been destroyed, but it suddenly appeared in the House of 5 Elders. Moment. All Celestial Dragons who heard this news were like falling into an ice cave, their whole bodies chilling. Is even 5 Elders the hell? Soon, Horns and Beards 5 Elders was protected by the CP0 powerhouse and came to another luxurious castle. No one lived here. All the furniture was brand new. It was a spare residence for 5 Elders. The castle gates were pushed open one after another, except for the powerful CP0 responsible for protecting the horns and beards of 5 Elders. Other 5 Elders are also here, grown-ups. All CP0 and servants, after seeing the arrival of a few 5 Elders, immediately bowed down and saluted, giving the highest respect. Horns and Beards 5 Elders stood at the window. Look into the distance. I saw it. In the original house, there are a lot of CP personnel coming in and out at this moment. They move all the furniture out and discard it, including the haunted TV. After being moved out, all these pieces of furniture were smashed and destroyed. There was no hesitation. The most decisive is, when the house was emptied, the entire castle was artificially flattened. Just listen to a bang. The bungalows collapsed and became ruins, everything was destroyed, leaving no trace. Does the videotape show up with you? The blonde 5 Elders raised his eyes, looked at the smoke billowing in the distance, and whispered. Well, I let someone destroy it. Horns and Beards 5 Elders nodded. Damn it. The Cap 5 Elders' cane hit the ground, and the spirit of the upper person is unreservedly released. There is no obvious anger, but it makes the surrounding people uneasy. Now, several 5 Elders, their hearts are heavy and warm. The ghosts who did evil in Marie Joy's have been eyeing them. Especially the Horns and Beards 5 Elders. He just told his relatives that the Holy Land is very safe now, so people don't need to worry about it. But how long has it passed now? He has been slapped in the face fiercely. Safe shit. He hit a ghost himself. It is conceivable that the spread of this incident will inevitably make more people in the Holy Land feel uneasy. Those celestial dragons who want to move away will really be unable to sit still. Let Kong follow you at night. Longbeard 5 Elders' eyes flickered. It's useless to follow. Impel down. Luo Wen lay on the bed, resting her head with her hand, and said slowly. Ding. 5 Elders Saint Edward is scared, scared point +5. Ding. Roxani Palace is scared, scared point +1. Ding ding ding. Now. Numerous reminders sounded in Luo Wen's ears, and they were intensifying. The panic in Marie Joy's had begun to spread. The night is the highlight, so get some sleep first. Luo Wen pulled down the quilt and turned over. This time, he really fell asleep. That night. Roxani Palace returned home, kicked the maid in front of him, took up the whip and beat it hard. Damn it. Damn it, it's safe to say that there is no danger, and I hit a ghost in a blink of an eye. Roxani Palace was mixed with anger and panic, venting all emotions on the maid. The maid knelt on the ground, not daring to move, letting it be beaten by the Roxani Palace. Bloody wounds soon appeared all over her body. If this continues, she will be beaten to death. Snapped. As the Roxani Palace rises and falls. The chandelier hanging on the ceiling flashed suddenly and then dimmed. What? The servant in the room yelled in panic when the light went dark. Now that Marie Joy's is known to be haunted, just a sudden black light can scare people to death. Immediately afterwards, the scary thing really happened. In the darkness, the TV in the next room suddenly turned on automatically. Chi-chi. The screen was shimmering, and there was no picture on it, but the snowflakes were flickering, making messy and faint sounds. Protect your lord. CP0 in the room reacted instantly and approached Roxani Palace as quickly as possible. Ghost. Ghost is coming, a bunch of trash, protect me. Where did Roxani Palace care about other things, threw the whip in his hand like an electric shock, and yelled in panic. Now. In this invisible darkness, several CP0s showed extremely high qualities, and instantly found the location of the Loksani Palace, protecting her in the entire range. The TV hasn't shown any picture yet, but this is what makes it even more frightening. No one knows what will appear in the picture in the next second. The faint and noisy electric current rang out all the time, scratching everyone's ears. "You trash, you must protect me, even if you die, you can't let me shed a drop of blood." Roxani Palace was about to be driven crazy by this voice, and he was screaming in terror. "We will lay down our lives to protect, adults, don't worry." CP0 spoke in the dark, "Quickly, hurry up and fix the circuit." Finish this sentence. He felt cold sweat dripping on his forehead. But CP0 dare not wipe it. "I was afraid that this action would cause a mistake, and I didn't protect the Loksani Palace behind him." Time is passing by a little bit. The clock hung on the wall. Every time the second hand beats, it will make a ticking sound, expanding indefinitely in this darkness, silently increasing the fear in people's hearts. Suddenly, he was in the dark. Although the commissioner was rushing to repair it, it was impossible to call immediately. Every CP0 is tight, eyes looking around, being alert to ghosts that may appear at any time. Cold sweat has wet their clothes. "You are all rubbish. Repairing a circuit is so slow. What do you do for food on weekdays? Hurry up and fix it." Roxani Palace became more and more disturbed. It seemed that only swearing could relieve the panic in her heart. "My lord, we try our best." The CP personnel who was rushing to repair the circuit wiped the sweat from his forehead and spoke extremely fast. Heard this. Roxani Palace wanted to scold again, but suddenly felt that there seemed to be something behind it. It was cold, and put it on his shoulder. Moment. Roxani Palace turned her head, her pupils shrank sharply. That is a hand. A woman with pale complexion and a bone-cold woman's hand. Moment. Roxani Palace's scalp numb, and a chill hits the sky. She wanted to scream in horror, however. The pale ghost on his shoulders stretched out his hand, covering her mouth from behind. Loksani Palace's eyes widened, all bloodshots appeared, and the skin was visible from white to blue. She wants to yell, but no sound can be heard. All CP0s can hear is the flickering of the TV's snowflake screen, the ticking of clocks moving, the sound of the companion swallowing drooling nervously. The servant is afraid of shaking. Slap. At this moment, the sound of switch closing sounded, the circuit was repaired, and the light was on. The darkness was swept away, and the room was illuminated transparently. See it CP0, who protected Loksani Palace, breathed a sigh of relief. Master Loksani Palace. He turned his head, halfway through the conversation, suddenly thinking that he had devoured a dead mouse. His face suddenly changed, and his words stopped abruptly. Do not know when. The Loksani Palace, protected by him, has no more breath. Her eyes widened as if they were about to burst out of her eye sockets, and two ghost mudra were sunken deep in her neck, and the blood vessels nearby were bulging as if they were about to explode. The death is miserable, and the 7 orifices are bleeding. This moment. Others are also watching. What? The maid screamed in horror, cutting through the long night. At the same time, Horns and Beard's 5 elders lived in a spare bungalow. Everything here is brand new, to ensure that there is no possibility of any ghost contact. The light is on in the living room. Horns and Beard's 5 elders ate dinner slowly. Opposite him, Kong sat with his back straight. Dinner was set in front of him, but he didn't make any moves, always protecting the 5 elders, his horns and beards, and he would take action immediately if there was any change. From the time the sun went down, until now at 8 or 9 o'clock, nothing happened. When the clock hands jumped to the number 9 completely. A CP person wearing a white suit suddenly walked in and said a word in panic. Sir, Lord Roxani Palace was killed at home. Kang dang. Horns and Beards, the knives and forks in 5 elders' hands hit the dishes, making a crisp sound. This moment. Horns and Beards' 5 elders' pupils constricted. Obviously the videotape was destroyed, all the furniture was destroyed, and even the house was demolished. Why was Loksani Palace still killed? Go and see. Horns and Beards' 5 elders got up with a sullen face, and under the protection of CP staff and Kong, quickly rushed to the home of Roxani Palace. In the living room. Roxani Palace stiffened and was covered by a white cloth. Horns and Beards' 5 elders inhale slightly. Squat down and uncover a corner of the white cloth. The dark face of Roxani Palace, revealed. Her eyes widened, her mouth wide open, her expression frightened, as if she had been terribly frightened before she died. On her neck, 2 ghost handprints were deeply sunken. It was not like the corpse of a person who had just died, it was more like it had been left for a long time. The corpse had obviously changed color, and the hideous and terrifying face made people feel uneasy. Still haven't escaped. The horns and beard five elders' eyelids twitched. It was he who let Roxani Palace stay at ease, and now that even one night has not passed, Roxani Palace is dead, which has slapped him in the face severely. Patter. Sudden. The lights in the room dimmed. This time the chandelier bulb on the top burst directly without any external interference. At the same time, the surrounding air is obviously cooling down, and the creepy breath is recovering, as if there is a ghost here, and now it has opened its eyes. Not good. Sora's face suddenly changed, and he once had a fight with the white-clothed ghost. He instantly understood that this was a sign of Li Gui's recovery. Next moment, he didn't hesitate, stepping forward and standing next to five elders with horns and beards, his hands quickly covered with a layer of black and red, and the two-color entanglement of conquerors and armed colors was completed in an instant. Chi-chi. Horns and beards five elders' face changed slightly, and he suddenly heard a strange electric noise, which made him subconsciously turn his head to look. Suddenly, the TV in the next room turned on autonomously. A white shadow dangled. The ghost in white clothes with black hair covering her face teleported from a distance, without warning, at the forefront of the picture. She stood quietly, her hands drooping, her head raised, and with the movement of the dead man's eyes under her black hair, she seemed to be staring in a certain direction. Five elders, the horns and beards standing in the middle of the living room, gave a fierce heartbeat. He has a feeling of being stared at. The ghost is watching him. The ghost in white stands quietly in the picture. Horns and beards, the hairs on five elders' arms stand up. Destroy the TV. Kong keenly noticed something strange in an instant, and Conqueror's fists wrapped in armed color blasted out. Boom. With this punch, the TV was torn apart with the wall behind. Moment. The flickering sound of the snowflake screen disappeared, and the surroundings became quiet again. Quickly, check the circuit and turn on the backup light if there is no problem. There is no problem with the circuit. Try to turn on the backup lights. Protecting CP0 by his side acted swiftly and took a series of measures. Snapped. As the switch is pressed, the standby lamp lights up, and the amount of light in the room is restored. The debris of the TV was scattered on the ground, a wall collapsed, and the room was in a mess. But nothing more, no other changes. The CP0s were frightened, for fear of horns and beards. Five elders were also murdered in the black like Roxani Palace. But, fortunately, five elders, the horns and beards standing behind them, were all right, nothing unusual. Seeing this, Sora was also unrecognizable with a sigh of relief. Go back, it was indeed that thing that harmed the Roxani Palace. Five elders, the horns and beards, saw that everything had been dealt with, and after saying this, turned and went home. As soon as he stepped out of the room, the horns and beards of five elders were hard to see. Just now, the moment he saw the female ghost, a thought came up in his mind: leaving the Holy Land. This thought made him look bad. Even I have this idea, but what about the other celestial dragons? If you don't get rid of the haunting, the Holy Land really requires people to go to the building, and it will exist in name only. With all kinds of thoughts in my mind, Horns and Beard's five elders returned home. After a brief wash, the maid put on pajamas for him and lay on the bed ready to go to sleep. Time goes by a little bit. Doorway. Sora and CP personnel are patrolling together. They were mentally tense throughout the whole process, and did not relax at all. They had turned the house upside down a long time ago. There was absolutely nothing to play videotapes, and everything with a display was smashed. That's all. Passed in the first half of the night. There is nothing unusual. I don't know why. Kong looked at the darker night outside the window, and suddenly felt a sense of restlessness. This is an intuition. There seems to be something wrong. Something's wrong. I have to go in. He made a decisive decision and spent most of his life fighting. What he believed most was his instinct. But Commander Kong, CP0 next to it wants to block. Everything is too normal now. There was no power outage before the female ghost appeared, and there was no snowflake screen on the TV. Rushing in is disturbing the noble five elders. But Sora didn't care about CP0 at all, and rushed to the door of five elders with horns and beards, and raised his hand to push the door open. However, at the moment he wanted to press the doorknob to open the door. My heart sank suddenly. Sora found that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't push down the doorknob. The door is blocked by something. This feeling is like a person inside the door, pressing his body against the door, not letting Kong open it. At the same time, In a dark room. A pale and withered female palm stretched out from the darkness behind, quietly resting on the shoulders of the sleeping horns and beards of 5 elders. Horns and beards 5 elders opened his eyes suddenly. He wanted to struggle, but his body was cold, as if he had been filled with lead water, unable to move at all. In an instant. Horns and beards 5 elders had bloodshot eyes in his old eyes, and his limbs twitched and struggled. Within 2 seconds before and after, his body stiffened and his breathing stopped. He died, this big man at the pinnacle of power, just died like that. No, something happened. Although it was only 2 seconds, the air outside the door still heard movement. At this moment, he thought of what might happen in the room, and he felt that his heart was about to explode. Electric light flint room. Kong didn't care about so much, he would blow up the door with one punch. But in the next second, the originally closed door opened it by itself. Squeak. The door frame hit the wall with a dull sound. Sora collapsed in one step. There was a flash of rainbow in his eyes. With the help of observation hockey, he saw through the darkness. At this moment, Kong's face changed drastically. At the same time, ding. 5 elders Saint Edward is scared point +20. Ding. The commander-in-chief of the army is frightened point +10. Ding. Luo Wen listened to the system prompts ringing in his ears, and took out a bucket of instant noodles to boil water. This time, there are a lot of surprises. Sure enough, cutting leeks requires cutting advanced leeks. Luo Wen said from the bottom of his heart, the boiling water is ready. Luo Wen picked up the kettle and poured boiling water into the instant noodles. The heat rushed over her face, and the aroma came out all at once, especially in this dim cell. Damn, what smells so good? I haven't eaten cup noodles for so many years, it's so delicious. Someone in the surrounding cell was very irritable, cursing and banging on the iron railings, making a crisp noise. Luo Wen doesn't care about them. Leaning on the sofa happily, leaning on Erlang's legs and waiting for the instant noodles. Suddenly, another beep sounded in Luo Wen's ear. Ding. 5 elders Saint Edward is scared point +30. Moment. Luo Wen raised his eyebrows. Isn't this old guy dead? How come there is this scare point? According to the calculation of the system, only when the target feels frightened will it get the fright point. But, how can a dead person feel fear? The next moment, he closed his eyes again, and once again connected Sadako's line of sight. With an unexpected look, Luo Wen looked in Marie-Joyce's direction again. Marie-Joy is no longer peaceful at this time. Yes, Celestial Dragons was awakened by servants in his sleep. Someone wanted to scold the ignorant CP personnel. Why did they move around in the middle of the night? The next moment, he suddenly learned that 5 elders, the horns and beard, had died. At this moment, Celestial Dragons is cold all over. When the scolding words stopped, Celestial Dragons packed up all night in fright, and the ship was ready to leave soon. And such a scene does not just happen here. More and more Celestial Dragons made the same move and were about to flee that night. The wave of moving away from Marie-Joy's unknowingly set off the first wave. At this time, in the room of 5 elders with horns and beards, the other 5 elders arrived overnight. Horns and beards 5 elders' corpse was placed on the bed before it was moved. The skin of the corpse was faintly blue, which made people shudder. Master 5 elders. Sora stood up and bowed to the other 5 elders. His face is ugly. This time, he was negligent and failed to protect the horns and beards of 5 elders. Unexpectedly, let the ghost find a chance. Dao Robe 5 elders had cold light in their eyes, and their expression was cold and solemn. At this moment, the faces of the other 5 elders were also impossible to look good. The death of 5 elders with horns and beards meant that they themselves were no longer safe. Horns and beards 5 elders will be killed by ghosts, and so will they. Sora watched the changes in the faces of several 5 elders, and when he was about to speak, he suddenly stopped, his eyelids jerked. Out of the corner of his eye, a horrified discovery. Lying on the bed, 5 elders with stiff horns and beards seemed to move their fingers. Sora swears that he was right. At the moment just now, he really saw 5 elders moving his fingers. A dead person. How could he be able to move his fingers? Fraud. This moment, Sora even felt the hairs on his arms stand up. He had to think in a spiritual way. Marie-Joy had been haunted recently, and what happened could not be explained by common sense. Just want to talk the dead horns and beards, 5 elders' eyelids moved slightly, and suddenly got out of the boat and sat up. He covered his neck, gasping for breath. The blue color on his body faded. He came back to life? The empty pupils suddenly shrank. He clearly felt that 5 elders with horns and beards really came alive, with breathing. The characteristics of a corpse disappeared, and the body regained temperature. This, in an instant, I thought of a legend about immortality. Rumor. The ultimate meaning of op fruit can allow mankind to fulfill the dream since ancient times. That is, immortality. Therefore, some people even make op fruit the ultimate fruit. But this is a rumor after all. There are too many sayings about the ultimate meaning of op fruit. So far there is no clear definition, because no one has accepted the ultimate meaning of op fruit at all. But now, Sora is shaken by this statement. Really, no one, have you accepted it? However, Sora did not continue to think about it, and there was no need to think about it in the current situation. Now, the revived horns and beard 5 elders stroked his neck, gasping with lingering fears. This moment, his eyes widened slightly, recalling the cold death. At the moment of being touched by the palm of the female ghost, 5 elders with the horns and beard felt as if they were thrown into an icy abyss. All they could feel was the constant falling downwards. A bone-to-body chill enveloped themselves and swallowed their own lives. This is the coldness of ghosts. The horns and beard 5 elders are creepy. Are you okay? The blonde 5 elders frowned, and he saw that 5 elders with the horns and beard was in a very bad state. I'm fine. The bullhorn beard 5 elders shook his head, then he raised his arm. I saw it. A black ghost handprint was imprinted on the back of his hand, as if a ghost was grabbing his palm fiercely, trying to drag him away. To solve it as soon as possible, that ghost is terrible. Bullhorn beard 5 elders looked at the ghost handprints, their eyes flickered, and a deep and horrible voice echoed in the room. At the same time, impelled down, inside eternal hell. Sitting on the sofa, Luo Wen seemed to be sleeping on a fake day, suddenly opening his eyes. He blinked, adjusting to the sudden change in the picture. Really resurrected. Luo Wen's eyes drooped and thoughts emerged in his mind. Sadako did kill 5 elders, which he saw through Sadako's eyes. But 5 elders, the horn beard, really came alive, and Luo Wen could also see the ghost handprints left by Sadako on 5 elders, the horn beard. This moment, Luo Wen frowned. There are some conjectures in mind. Op fruit. The ultimate meaning. Immortality. Could it be this? Can't die? If you can't die, then. The next moment, Luo Wen stared and grinned. That would be so interesting. If you come back to life after you die once, you can get so much from the scared point. If this is deliberately controlled to a good degree, wouldn't it be possible to keep scoring? Immediately afterwards, Luo Wen thought of another question. But, is it really immortal? Can't die. Is there a number of times? Luo Wen murmured softly. He has read a lot of comics and novels anyway. It is difficult to have a real immortal existence. Generally speaking, this method has a great price. I just don't know what the price of 5 elders is. After thinking for a while, Luo Wen shook his head, lifted the lid of the instant noodles, and took a big mouthful. Luo Wen frowned when he ate the noodles into his mouth. Oh, the buns are gone. He said it out loud without any scruples. This sound was heard by the people around the cell, and the eyelids jumped wildly. Asshole, you can give it to me if you don't want to eat it. Good damn its face, is he definitely showing off? What does it matter if it is soaked? Some food is good. The drunkard Joe wanted to curse. This Luo Wen is such a bastard. They are starving to death in eternal hell. They don't know how many years they haven't eaten good food. Luo Wen is not satisfied with the fragrant and spicy drink. It's just. People are more popular than others. Gurulu. Ace screamed out of his stomach, and his soul flew away with Luo Wen's instant noodles. Luo Wen heard what they said. After a slight pause, he smiled and said, "Everyone, I have a question, can someone help me answer it?" Luo Wen picked up an unopened bucket of instant noodles next to him, lifted it up and shook it towards the prisoners in the dark. "If you answer, how about I give you cup noodles?" This sentence came out. The prisoners in the dark suddenly got excited. "Don't fight with me, I want to answer his question first." Ha 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 ha. What flavor of cup noodles? I like to eat it the most. Forget it, any flavor will do. It's really surprising that this stubborn guy is willing to give us good things this time. Everyone moved, walking out of the darkness, staring at Luo Wen intently. Really? Tell me what you want to ask. Choate grinned and jumped off the bed with a pop, dragging the chain to the door of the cage. The problem is simple. Can anyone live forever in this world? Or, not to die? Facing a series of gazes, Luo Wen slowly asked this question that shocked everyone. Eternal life. These two words came out of Luo Wen's mouth. Eternal hell. There was silence for an instant. The temptation that immortality brings to people is too great. Who doesn't want to be able to fight for the crown on the sea forever, sit on the most treasures, and occupy the most extensive territory? Therefore, these prisoners of eternal hell, after hearing Luo Wen say something about ghosts, in fact, some people really hope that there will be ghosts in their hearts. If there are ghosts, can't it be explained that there is no need to fear death? Eternal life. Hee, does that kind of thing really exist? Luo Wen, you are asking us, we also want to ask you, how can a person become a ghost after death? Someone whispered in the dark, and an inexplicable light flashed in his eyes. You talk too much nonsense. Chot tilted his head and looked at the speaker, then grinned. Since no one of you answered, then I will get a bucket of cup noodles. He paused briefly and continued. Speaking of immortality or immortality, there is a legend circulating in the sea that in addition to its own abilities, Op fruit has an ability that has been developed to the ultimate level, which is called the ultimate meaning of Op fruit. If you use this profound meaning to people, you can get eternal life. However, this is just a legend. No one knows what exactly it is. I am afraid I can only ask those who have developed the ultimate Op fruit ability or those who have accepted the ultimate secret. Chot's low voice echoed faintly in this prison. Luo Wen listened and nodded gently. Raised his hand and threw out a bucket of instant noodles in a hot pot. Chot's words are similar to his own guesses, which is not a puzzle, but Luo Wen still gave a bucket of instant noodles. After all, he has to share his happiness with his inmates. Hey, thanks a lot. Chot grabbed the instant noodles that came flying, and his ruddy face was even more glorious. He hadn't eaten decent food for a long time. If it was outside, he wouldn't even look at a bucket of instant noodles, but in this eternal hell, it was more delicious than anything else. In addition to what Chot said, there is another fruit that can also achieve the immortality effect you said. Suddenly, someone spoke again. This time, it was the cell next to Luo Wen. The chunky prisoner put his face on the iron railing, and wanted to turn his head to look at Luo Wen. That is the fruit of Wangchen. It is said that the person who eats the fruit of the yellow spring can be resurrected after death, and will gain some strength from it. After speaking, the chunky prisoner licked his lips. How about it, Luo Wen? Are you satisfied with this answer? Give me a bucket of cup noodles. After listening to the answer from the chunky prisoner, Luo Wen picked up a bucket of instant noodles and threw it over. Actually, the answer didn't help him. Wangchen fruit can indeed die and be resurrected. But Luo Wen knew that the Wangchen fruit had been eaten by Brook. Op fruit, vampire fruit, yellow spring fruit. Just then, an old and aging voice sounded from the depths of the distant prison cell. In the darkness, a pair of scarlet eyes opened, and the figure of an old gentleman bound by chains all over his body answered Luo Wen's question. Luo Wen was startled when he heard the words. He was surprised that this man would answer his own questions. Throughout the entire eternal hell, several people are extremely powerful, and it can even be said that they have overpowered other legendary pirates and reached a higher level. Even if they face the current Sea Emperor, they will not lose the wind. One of them, as this old figure detained in a deep cell. With the help of one person, the Red Earl Letterfield goes hand in hand with Whitebeard. So what about resurrection? Can Op fruit do this? Luo Wen asked again. This time he was really looking forward to it. With Letterfield's weight, he might really know some secrets. Do not know, the old voice sounded unhurriedly. Heard this answer. Luo Wen was disappointed, grabbed a bucket of instant noodles and threw it over. He knew that Letterfield answered questions mostly not for instant noodles. If a person of this level really doesn't want to talk, it's not a bucket of instant noodles that can tempt him to speak. But it's not a problem to give a bucket at hand, it's all about the answer. Interesting. In the cell, Letterfield saw the thrown instant noodles and gave a deep smile. He didn't rush to eat instant noodles, smiled and closed his eyes again, and went back to sleep again. Luo Wen didn't care about him either. Then, several more prisoners answered the question. Luo Wen sent a bucket of instant noodles by himself, but the result was not very good. There is no substantial gain. Luo Wen shook his head in his heart. It seems that world government can stand for 800 years in this chaotic world without failing. It is a real master with many secrets. You know, in Luo Wen's memory, the longest dynasty in the long history of the Long Kingdom was only 791. Ding. CP0 Byron is scared, scared point +3. Ding. Celestial Dragons Arnold Saint is scared, scared point +1. Ding. At this time, the system alert sound beside Luo Wen's ear has not stopped, it has been ringing continuously. Obviously, the impact and turmoil caused by the death of 5 elders on Marie Joyce has not subsided, and it continues to spread. Since you can't find the answer, it's better to try a few more times. Luo Wen shook his head and didn't think about it anymore. Can 5 elders be resurrected? Do not you know why? It doesn't matter, kill a few more times, all the secrets will come out. More importantly, there are really a lot of scares. Getting a 5 elders is more profitable than killing 10 celestial dragons. Thought of this. A smile appeared on Luo Wen's face. Go to bed now. Luo Wen finished the instant noodles with 2 mouthfuls, patted his stomach comfortably, and lay on the bed ready to go to sleep. When the surrounding prisoners saw that Luo Wen was going to sleep, they suddenly drew the sky, hoping to get instant noodles from Luo Wen's hands. Luo Wen didn't bother to listen to their nonsense. Turned over and fell asleep. The next day, Luo Wen got up early in the morning. It is difficult to distinguish between day and night in the prison, but Luo Wen intimately hung up a clock in the prison to distinguish the time. Luo Wen originally planned to get up to read a book, but this idea was still dispelled. He felt that he had been reading a book recently and was a little bit crooked. Speaking of which, is there a movie in the world? Luo Wen spit out brushing water, wiped his mouth and packed up the washing utensils. Tell Zhenzi to get some videotapes over? Luo Wen picked up a handful of water and washed his face. This seems to be really okay. Maybe you can see something interesting? Luo Wen smiled in his heart. Then, in the eyes of envy, jealousy and hatred in a crowd of prisoners, Luo Wen sat at the dining table leisurely, picking up a small cake and preparing for breakfast. This is the cake that Shalwazi takes from Hanaibao's table this morning. The taste of chocolate, Luo Wen thinks it is very good. Simply finish breakfast. Luo Wen seemed to think of something suddenly. He looked in a direction outside the cage, looked for a moment. Luo Wen picked up the milk on the table and drank it, stood up and walked to the cage railing, looking towards the exit direction of the 6th floor. Opposite the cage, Ace and Jinbei both discovered Luo Wen's change. Even Crocodile farther away saw this scene. What is he looking at? Crocodile's eyes flickered and his voice was low. He doesn't like to talk very much, but it doesn't mean that he is completely autistic. Crocodile is interested in Luo Wen in his heart. Luo Wen is very unpredictable in his mind. Even Marine Marshal Sengoku is deflated in his hands. It is conceivable that he is definitely a dangerous person. What are you looking at? Ace said. Luo Wen was in jail during this time and rarely did such a move. In other words, since Luo Wen came to Eternal Hell, he basically only did his own business and was basically not interested in the outside world. What happened this time? Is there anything that interests this weird guy who likes to tell ghost stories? Ace is curious. Hear Ace's voice. Luo Wen looked sideways, looking at the opposite cage. Now, Ace's hands were tied by chains and hung in the air. There were scars all over his body. He didn't know whether it was an old wound left during the battle with Blackbeard or a new wound caused during the interrogation. Captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. Luo Wen raised his eyebrows slightly. You will be executed soon. Are you still paying attention to me? It's really going to die, but I am alive now. Ace heard these words without much fluctuation, and a free and easy chuckle appeared on his face. Pause briefly. He asked again. What are you looking at? Look at the 6th floor exit. Luo Wen answered casually. Next second. Under the sluggish eyes of Jinbei, Ace and others, Luo Wen, who had already changed into a suit, penetrated the iron railing of the cell and walked straight out of it. This scene. Many prisoners have seen it. Hey, even the outfit has changed, and he doesn't wear prison uniforms. This guy is going to escape from prison. It's been a long time since I saw The Escape. I remember a guy who wanted to escape more than 10 years ago. He was blocked and killed without even going out. Luo Wen, how did you come out? Is Devil Fruit capable? Help me unlock the chains, and I will give you all my treasures. At this moment, too many voices appeared. Some people saw Luo Wen escape from prison. Their eyes were red with excitement, and others were out of the way, looking like they were watching a good show. Even Leadfield in the dark was startled. His scarlet eyes looked at Luo Wen, who had already walked out of the cell. Who said I'm running away from home? Luo Wen looked at the prisoners who were talking in the dark. Prison is my home, I live comfortably. What do I want? What do I want to leave? Luo Wen said as he walked away, I just took a walk after breakfast and will be back later. The voice fell. Luo Wen's body disappeared at the entrance of the 6th floor. Obviously the door was closed at this moment, but Luo Wen still walked over. No, to be precise, it penetrated the past, just like he walked out of the prison, as if the body had no entity, just illusion. At the same time Luo Wen disappeared, there was a very small murmur. I remember this prison has 5 to 5 floors. On the other side, Jinbei in the cage is completely sluggish. Is Luo Wen really a criminal on the 6th floor? How to give people a feeling of coming and leaving. It's really a bastard to take the 6th floor in charge. Crocodile raised his head and looked at the entrance where Luo Wen disappeared. His eyes flickered slightly, and finally he smiled strangely. This moment. Because of Luo Wen's departure, Eternal Hell was in a mess, and various voices sounded around. Go. Really go. Damn it. Someone is cursing. This guy is really like a ghost. This gate is made by seastone. How did he penetrate and leave? That's not Devil Fruit's ability. There are also people whose eyelids jump wildly, marveling at Luo Wen's methods. It's annoying you all. Some people were too lazy to take care of these things, turning over and continuing to sleep, the chains rang. At the same time, Luo Wen who penetrated the gate of Eternal Hell. The figure is illusory, as if there is no entity, like a ghost out of the body, walking in the walls or cracks of the prison. As he walked, there was a slight sound of footsteps in the wall, but outsiders could not see any figures. Luo Wen's ability to escape from prison is certainly not Devil Fruit, he is not Demon Fruit power. But Luo Wen has a ghost. When Luo Wen picked the first ghost Zhenzi, he already had all of Zhenzi's abilities, including physique. It can be said that Luo Wen is no different from a real ghost now. As long as he wants to use the power of this part of the ghost, then he is the most vicious ghost. Sudden. Luo Wen heard the footsteps of someone walking across the wall. At the same time, there were smiling voices. Oh, Impel Down has been really not peaceful recently. It is said that ghosts are really making noise, and many people have died. Really? Haunted things are unbelievable no matter how you look at them. There are really ghosts in the world. It's not someone's Devil Fruit ability. Are we going to be haunted at 5 to 5? Do not know. Luo Wen's ear moved. He suddenly felt that one of the voices across the wall was very familiar. Immediately, Luo Wen's body turned into a ghost again, and he walked directly to the wall. The moment it penetrates the wall, a big-headed man with heavy makeup and strange costumes faces Luo Wen's eyes. At this time, Luo Wen's body was illusory, half of his body appeared outside the wall, and there was no shadow at all. And the man who stared at Luo Wen was the ladyboy King Ivankov. Ah 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 ah. Suddenly, Luo Wen screamed in horror. Ivankov opened his mouth wide, his tongue cocked high. Ghost. Ghost. Ivankov's flower face turned pale, he was scared to pee. Walking on the road a second ago, I happily chatted with Inazuma about haunting. In a blink of an eye, I saw a ghost-like person walking out of the wall in front. Combining this one after the other, I almost freaked out Ivankov. Ding. Shemale King Ivankov was frightened point +5. Ding. Shemale Inazuma is scared point +3. Luo Wen's expression was slightly startled as he listened to the beep in his ear. This is also okay? Can you be scared even if you are scared? Luo Wen was really surprised, because he is no different from a ghost now, or is it some other reason? He didn't care much about this either. Look at Ivankov and smile. I found you. When Ivankov heard Luo Wen's voice, the goosebumps fell to the ground. But in the next second, he reacted. You are human? Ivankov was stunned, then his eyes widened. Are you Luo Wen? He was on the 5 to 5 floor, this special place, and his movements were not too restricted, and he knew some of the conditions in the prison. Ivankov was talking to Inazuma before that Impel Down was haunted. In fact, Impel Down used to be haunted because they live on the 5.5th floor, and people often go out to steal things from Impel Down. Over time, there have been rumors of haunting. But Ivankov himself knew that this was not really haunted, it was just that the shemales were stealing things, and they were not ghosts either. But this time the hauntings are different. Ivankov can be sure that it's not that things are not so simple, but that there are real ghosts in Impel Down. They guys didn't go out to steal things, not to mention Ivankov heard. Many people died in Impel Down. The more important point. Ivankov spied on a news by accident. Impel Down was suddenly haunted, and it seemed to be related to a man named Luo Wen who was imprisoned on the 6th floor. At the same time Luo Wen went to the 5-5 floor. Holy Land Marie Joyce. The frightening night finally passed, and the rays of morning light swayed between the heaven and the earth. The darkness receded, but the fear that remained in Celestial Dragon's heart was indelible. A gossip circulated quietly. 5 elders seemed to be injured by a ghost. This almost became the last straw that overwhelmed the camel. The evacuation wave of celestial dragons began. It is no longer a small number of celestial dragons leaving, but a large number of evacuations. Only early in the morning, Marie Joyce's port was full of ships, and celestial dragons wearing bubble caps could not wait to leave. Soon. Another news that was enough to shock everyone. Celestial dragons, who was the first to leave Marie Joyce last night, disappeared. This discovery made many celestial dragons ecstatic. The already crowded port. In a short period of time, it burst. One morning passed. The celestial dragons with ghost handprints on their bodies are all gone except for one person. Now. Sora and 5 elders with horns and beards, standing together on the tower in the center of the Holy Land, saw celestial dragons evacuate from a distance. Horns and beards 5 elders carried their hands on their backs, and their faces were ugly. He knew exactly what it meant when such a thing happened. This can already be explained. Marie Joy, the Holy Land that has existed since the establishment of the world government, has begun to collapse. It is not a collapse in the physical sense, but a spiritual destruction. Celestial dragons have left. What holy places are they talking about? More importantly, the celestial dragons who are now evacuated have not all gone to a specific place, but have scattered and went to places that they thought were safe. It's okay if it's only for a while. If it goes on for a long time, it is possible for several big families to split. And Horns and Beards 5 elders has no way to stop them from leaving, because the Holy Land is really dangerous now, and staying here is really likely to kill people. Even they themselves are in danger. Thought of this. Horns and Beards 5 elders raised their arms and looked at the wrists covered by the black suit. The only celestial dragons with ghost handprints that didn't leave as him. Sora, you go to Impel Down now. Horns and Beards 5 elders lowered his arms and said lowly. Good. Empty nodded, without any hesitation, turned around and left. After the air leaves. Horns and Beards 5 elders turned their heads and walked between the right from the outer layer of the tower. At this time, the other 5 elders were all there. They were sitting on the sofa, their faces all uncertain. Because of the 2 female ghosts, the 800-year-old Holy Land has been burned to the torch. How ridiculous it is. Sudden. Bang bang, the door was knocked. Come in. Horns and Beards 5 elders looked at it and answered casually. Next moment. The door opened, and a woman with a silver mask walked in. And the moment this woman walked in, 5 elders' faces all changed. Without any hesitation, 5 elders, all facing the masked woman, knelt down on one knee. They did not belong to this woman. It was a jade medal she was holding, which represented the existence of the Supreme Celestial Dragons Lord Yim. Master Yim asked me to ask, when will the 5 adults solve the haunting? The voice of the masked woman came from behind the mask, with a sense of humming. This sentence came out. All 5 elders changed color. They lowered their heads quickly, and there was an inexplicable light flashing in their old eyes. Lord Yim asked. Haunted has alarmed him. That afternoon. Naval Headquarters, meeting room. At this time, many Marines in the conference room came, basically all Marines who were above the rank of Rear Admiral in the headquarters and had no missions for the time being. Crane sat in the meeting room chief, drinking coffee. The dark circles on his face were coming out. In the past 2 days, Sangoku was still impelled down, and almost all the affairs of the headquarters were left to her, which kept her awake for 2 or 3 days. And beside the crane, a videophone worm is placed, and its eyes glow, projecting the image of impelled down. It's Sangoku. He was far away and impelled down, but still participated in this meeting through a video connection. Boom. At this moment, the door of the conference room was brutally pushed open. Garp strode in. Have you heard of Suru? Garp yelled as soon as he came in. Hear what Garp said. Crane looked up. Then he nodded gently. Although Garp didn't say what it was, Crane thought of what Garp was going to say for the first time. Celestial dragons in the Holy Land found that the ghost handprints on their bodies disappeared after leaving the Holy Land. This is the same for their naval headquarters. The same goes for some Marines on duty. After they left the headquarters, the ghost mudra naturally disappeared. Now many Marines with handprints on their bodies really broke their heads and drilled outside. Those with tasks hurried out, but those without tasks took the initiative to apply for going out. They have never been so active. And the most troublesome thing for Crane is, as long as you stay in this part, you might wake up and find out more ghost fingerprints on your body. In other words, the number of people with ghost mudra is increasing. What does this situation represent? I'm afraid it's naval headquarters, and within a few months, it will be Sky Island directly. And even the residents of the towns surrounding Marineford are not at ease. This impact is too great. Everyone will be afraid of death. If you have ghost handprints on your body, you may hit a ghost. The key is that the ghost can't be solved, and everyone needs to be afraid. Crane hasn't slept for these 2 days, just thinking about how to deal with ghosts. Even 5 elders hit a ghost. Sengoku of the video connection speaks. He really had a headache and didn't think of a solution. I stayed in Impel Down for so many days, just want to see if I can join forces with Magellan to catch the toilet ghost girl. As a result, Magellan's ass was going to be broken, and he couldn't even catch the ghost shadow. Sengoku sighed in his heart again and again. Just then, I think we can consider moving. A lazy voice sounded. A curly-haired man wearing a white suit and blindfold on his head, with a sloppy expression, stepped in. He is the Aokiji Kuzan, one of Marine's 3 admiral, who is now at the apex of Marine's combat power. Kuzan's words are like a boulder, smashed into the meeting room, making all the Marines in the presence look different. Sengoku in the video was obviously startled. Crane's hand while drinking coffee. Garp's eyes widened. This idea is outrageous. Move away? Isn't that saying that Marine is afraid of female ghosts? Even if you can't hold your own base camp, what are you talking about sticking to justice? Kuzan, your idea will damage Marine's image. At this moment, a calm and determined voice sounded. Sakazuki, dressed in a red suit, with a firm face and iron-blooded temperament, strode into the meeting room. Also at the apex of Marine's combat power, another, Akainu Sakazuki, one of the 3 admirals, is here. Now. Sakazuki's face was cold, and there was heavy smoke rolling on his body, which seemed to fluctuate due to his emotions, so that the surrounding air was heating up extremely. There is no reason to retreat. If you retreat because you are afraid of death, why should you catch the pirate? If it is spread out, Marine will have any face. Is it to tarnish his own justice? Sakazuki looked at Kuzan coldly, his words and expressions conveyed a message he disagreed. Move away. This is bowing his head to the female ghost, Sakazuki can't accept it. In an instant, 2 breaths collided in the meeting room, and Kuzan narrowed his eyes. He didn't show much of Sakazuki's strength, and still looked sloppy. Marine in the field was silent, watching the confrontation between the 2 admiral, no one spoke. This is a conflict of ideas. This idea is actually not impossible. At this moment, Sengoku broke the silence on the other side of the video. His eyes flickered, and after thinking about it for a moment, he said. The location of the G1 branch is actually very suitable for us to move to. It is located in the New World in the second half of the Grand Line. Our naval headquarters used to be more conducive to suppressing the crimes of pirates. Yes, the G1 branch is a good choice. After listening to Sengoku's words, Suru nodded slightly after thinking about it. I have to admit that this is a way to advance and retreat. Going to the G1 branch will not only get rid of the female ghost in white, but also better fight the pirates. It can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. However, don't move right now. We have to try to solve the problem of the ghost in white clothes. We must also prepare for the move. The 2-handed plan is more secure. Crane put down the coffee, put his arms around his chest, and said his thoughts slowly. Whatever you do. Sakazuki heard Sengoku and Crane scream at the same time, and turned and left with a cold snort on the spot. No matter what Sengoku and Suru say, naval headquarters will move away or not. He will not leave by himself, still so stubborn. At the other end of the video, Sengoku saw Sakazuki's behavior through the video phone worm, and couldn't help but rub his eyebrows and let out a deep sigh. This is Sakazuki's justice, and no one can persuade it. I can only let him go. Soon. The news that Naval Headquarters Marineford was preparing to evacuate was quickly disseminated within Marine. That night, Marine one after another secretly prepared to evacuate. Some of the munition stocks were shipped out box after box. At the same time, Marie Joyce also had celestial dragons leaving one after another. Large ships of the world government sailed out of Marie Joyce and headed for the rest of the world. These clues have been noticed by those who are interested. They are surprised and curious, and they have a faint sense of seeing the mountains full of wind and rain. At the same time, impel down 5.5 layers. Shemale Paradise is said to be 5.5 floors, but in fact it is a space linked by secret passages. Now, Luo Wen is drinking with Ivankov in the largest space. Luo Wen, you are on the 6th floor right now. Do you want to live on our 5-to-5 floor? The environment here is much better than the 6th floor, and it is also more free. Ivankov raised his glass to clink with Luo Wen and invited him. No, my environment on the 6th floor is also very good. Luo Wen smiled and drank the wine. But I can come to your place to drink more often. It's a visit to a neighbor's house. Luo Wen's words were natural, and Ivankov's eyelids jumped. What this said makes impel down the same as Luo Wen's family. On the 6th floor, if you want to come out, you can come in. But when I think of Luo Wen's ability to penetrate walls like a ghost, Ivankov can't even speak half a rebuttal. In fact, it is really the same as Luo Wen himself said. He has no plans to change places. When he comes out from the 6th floor this time, he also plans to find a neighbor to talk to. By the way, Luo Wenboy, let me ask you something. Ivankov looked at Luo Wen, hesitated for a moment and said, is the haunted impel down recently really related to you? Hear the words. Luo Wen smiled. Yes, it has something to do with me. It's my ex-girlfriend who is looking for someone to kill her. Ivankov's eyebrows jumped. He almost called out. Admit it. Luo Wen really just admitted it so simply and frankly. But what the hell is the ex-girlfriend? Ex-girlfriend. Is your ex-girlfriend the ghost who made a lot of noise? Ivankov's eyelids jumped wildly. Luo Wen picked up the biscuits on the table, took a bite, and nodded lightly at the same time. Ivankov is a little numb. Really ex-girlfriend? People die, so they turn into ghosts. Then, how can you avoid ghosting? Does your ex-girlfriend have any preferences? Ivankov cautiously tentatively asked. I don't know that. Luo Wen wiped off the crumbs of biscuits on his mouth and reminded. You have to be careful. I think there are so many people here. My ex-girlfriend loves to go to crowded places. Don't sleep too hard when you sleep. What? In an instant, I was paying attention to the many ladyboys on Luo Wen's side. Ding. Shemale King Ivankov is scared, scared point +1. Ding. Shemale Andrew is scared, scared point +1. Ding. Shemale Enid is frightened, frightened point +1. Ding. All of a sudden, the system prompts in Luo Wen's ears have been maxed out. These guys, so unintimidated? Luo Wen glanced at the scared demons. After a brief shock, Ivankov recovered, looked at Luo Wen curiously, and asked again. In other words, how did you get locked in, Luo Wen, and what did you commit? Burned a marine branch. Luo Wen answered casually. Those on the 6th level of this question have also asked, and Luo Wen gave the same rhetoric. Finish this sentence. Luo Wen glanced at the time on his wristwatch. It's time to go back, Luo Wen said and stood up. Are you leaving? Ivankov hurriedly got up and picked up several barrels of wine from the side. These are all stolen from the impelled down warehouse. No, the good wine brought over is said to be Magellan's favorite wine. You can bring it back to drink. Good. Luo Wen nodded. He knew that this was Ivankov's friendly expression, and he had a good impression of this neighbor, and he did not refuse to accept it all. It's just. Luo Wen couldn't help but smile unkindly in his heart. Magellan is really miserable. The clock in the office was stolen by myself, and now the wine was also stolen by Ivankov. The key is that I couldn't even pull the shit and was harassed by Hanako all day long. No further delay. Luo Wen and Ivankov said goodbye, once again turned into ghosts, turned around and walked into the wall, disappearing without a trace. Little lightning, what do you think? After Luo Wen left, Ivankov suddenly asked Inazuma beside him. Haunting must have something to do with Luo Wen, not just as simple as an ex-girlfriend. Inazuma held up the unfinished red wine, narrowed his eyes and muttered. I feel so too. Ivankov laughed. He looked at Luo Wen's departure direction and said in a low voice, be careful of this neighbor. Hear the words. Inazuma nodded. Luo Wen is unpredictable and definitely a dangerous person. Inazuma heard some news and heard that Magellan and they went to find Luo Wen several times. They knew that the haunting was related to Luo Wen, but they still didn't do anything to Luo Wen. This can already show that Luo Wen is extremely dangerous, making Magellan cast a rat avoidance device. And Luo Wen came to their 5-5 floor like a ghost. This is too weird. Since the 5-5 floor shemale paradise was established, no one can know, let alone a jailer has come in. But Luo Wen found it here. This alone is worthy of vigilance. At the same time, after Luo Wen left the 5-5 floor, Crimson Hell, the first layer of impelled down. Crimson Hell at this moment has really become hell. There was blood everywhere, stumps and broken arms scattered randomly, and other limbs hung on the iron railings of the cage. The entire cage became a river of blood, and the prisoners inside had long since died. And all this is the clown's hand. Now, the prisoners on the first floor are angry. A large group of people surrounded Buggy the Clown and stared at him angrily. Buggy, you're F***king looking for death. Dare to kill my friend. The big, fierce-looking pirate stood in front of Buggy, twisting his shoulders when he spoke, and his bones crackled. You are really crazy. Dare to take action against us, when we are very bullied. Tell him so much. Kill this bastard clown. If you don't kill him, he will destroy us one by one and kill us all. More and more prisoners gathered, all staring at Buggy murderously, wishing to take Buggy's skin and bones. During the recent period, a murderous clown appeared on the first floor. Once someone was ordered, he would be killed by the clown, and he died miserably, with no corpse. And the entire first floor is a clown like Buggy. Who did it? Need more to say. Now, Buggy panicked. Facing a crowd of people, he stepped back step by step, both legs trembling. Guru. It has nothing to do with me, I didn't do anything. Buggy swallowed hard and shook his head desperately to explain, for fear that these crazy criminals would rush up and tear himself apart in the next second. He was really wronged. I haven't done anything in the past 2 days, except eating and sleeping. How could I kill someone? And among those who died, there are guys who don't seem to be messy on weekdays, so I can't beat them myself. Ghost F***king believes in you, beat him to death. Tear this clown bastard and pull his intestines out to hang him. Kill him. The prisoners who came around didn't care what Buggy was saying, yelling to do something to Buggy. Help, help. Buggy's soul frightened. At the same time, at the outer port of Impelled Down, a big man who is rarely seen on weekdays came. The commander-in-chief of the army, Kong, is empty. Sora. Why are you here? Sengoku, who was still in Impelled Down, stepped out of the ground floor and came to meet Sora himself. 5 elders let me take charge of Luo Wen personally. Sora told Sengoku what he was coming from, lowering his voice and whispering to Sengoku about the recent haunting in the holy place. 5 elders. Has already died once. What? Sengoku's pupils shrank. 5 elders was killed by the ghost in white, and came back from the dead? What happened to Marie Joyce during this time? The Holy Land is in chaos. Kong whispered. Too much everything was condensed in this short, chaotic word. Hear the words. Sengoku was shocked, and there was a big wave rolling. Not to mention the chaos in the headquarters, even the Holy Land. Although Sengoku has taken the white-clothed ghost seriously, now he feels that he may still be underestimated. Are there any comments from the upper side? Sengoku asked in a low voice. 2 preparations. Empty answer. In a few simple words, Sengoku has understood what 5 elders does. 5 elders ask you to kill Luo Wen? Sengoku frowned. They are all smart people, and they can guess what they are going to do with just a few clicks. And now Sengoku asked this sentence. If Sora really nodded, then Sengoku wanted to stop it from the bottom of his heart. In his opinion, Luo Wen's level of danger is very high, not even worse than the prisoners held in the deepest part of eternal hell. Because Luo Wen's methods are too weird, he is also a 6th-tier prisoner. Luo Wen's roommate in prison, the evil king, died, and the CP who came to interrogate also died. Everyone died silently. Unknown enemies are often the most dangerous, and when there is not enough intelligence, it is dangerous for Sora to act rashly. However, facing Sengoku's questioning, Kong shook his head slightly. Sengoku was stunned, not empty. How do you prepare? Could it be that he and Magellan? It's not right. It's not much different from Sora taking a shot in person. Next moment, Sengoku suddenly thought of something. He raised his head and looked at the sky, a light flashing in his eyes. The eternal hell prisoner whose history has been erased. Sengoku looked at nothing and said this sentence. The eternal hell prisoner whose history has been erased. These words are exported. Sora has a smile on his face. Sengoku, you are right to be called the resourceful general. I recommended you to be a marshal at the time. It was the most correct decision in my life. He did not answer Sengoku directly, but this sentence already gave the answer. It is not Sora, nor Sengoku and Magellan who have to deal with Luo Wen, but the murderous prisoner held in eternal hell. Only those extremely evil murderers who shouldn't exist in this world. Letting one of them take action on Luo Wen is the safest choice. Empty and low, his eyes looked at the underground entrance of Impel Down. Let's go. Without hesitation, stride towards eternal hell. Eternal hell. Inside a cage, Crocodile heard some noisy sounds. He raised his head. Seeing the commander-in-chief of the army coming, he was stunned for an instant. I'm free, eternal hell, and it was for Luo Wen's cell. Huh? Hey, even the air is here, for Luo Wen? Sora. Why are you the #1 running dog of celestial dragons here? For the man who tells ghost stories all day. One by one, the figures in the dark moved around, unscrupulously venting their malice. Sora, Sengoku, and Magellan walked on the eternal hell. There were cages everywhere. Some prisoners even stretched out their hands from the cage, trying to tear them apart. Looking at the empty waiters who paused in front of Luo Wen's cell. Crocodile, this is the first time ever. Strong thoughts about jailbreaking arose. However, Crocodile did not escape from prison for freedom, but he wanted to go to the outside world to find out what Luo Wen did. What happened outside during the time he was put in prison? What did this man as unpredictable as a ghost do outside, so that the Marine and the world government have come one after another with unimaginable big people? Next, I am afraid that some of the 5 old guys in the world government will come, and Crocodile feels that he will not be surprised anymore. Now, facing the noisy voices of the surrounding prisoners, Kong looked indifferently. Even though he didn't want to care about these guys, under Magellan's lead, he went straight to Luo Wen's cell. However, the moment he stood at the door of Luo Wen's cell, his expression suddenly changed. I saw it. No one in the cell. All kinds of furniture are still there, even the kettle is boiling water, steaming, but Luo Wen is gone. Luo Wen is gone? Speed? Up the video from the monitoring room. Magellan's eyes shrank suddenly, and he was furious, and ordered to the guard beside him. The prisoner in the cage is gone. What other possibilities are there besides escape? Under his jurisdiction, Impel Down has escaped from prison. Magellan was furious at first, and after the anger subsided, it was self-blame. I am dereliction of duty and failed to take care of Impel Down. This is my stain, and it is also the stain of Impel Down in the world's #1 prison. After this time, I will take the initiative to resign my position as director and apologize. Magellan was deep and ugly. Magellan, you don't need to do this. Luo Wen hasn't determined whether he has escaped. Now it is too late to find him and make up for it. Sengoku hurriedly persuaded. Magellan's importance in Impel Down is no less important than his position as a marshal in Marine. The reason why Impel Down can be made into a prison where it is impossible to escape, in addition to the basic fortifications, is the existence of the director Magellan and the guardian Shiryu. These two have become the iron wall of Impel Down. However, Shiryu was locked up again for torturing and killing prisoners during this period. In this case, if Magellan really resigns, I am afraid that no one can provoke the leader of the entire Impel Down. Magellan is resigning. There is such a good thing. Then I can become the director? Hanayabao's eyes widened, and unlike Sengoku, he was going to fly at the news. Sengoku glanced at Hanayabao, who was unobtrusive, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. This guy really said everything, and now he is still here to add fuel to the fire. Just then, a voice suddenly sounded behind everyone. It really doesn't have to be this way. If Director Magellan resigns, the safety index of Impel Down will be greatly reduced. When Sengoku heard this, he nodded in agreement. But the next second he froze. This voice. It seems something is wrong. Moment. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the location of the sound source. I saw it. In the shadow of the 6th floor exit, a tall figure wearing a suit walked out. He has a handsome face, bright eyes and a smile on his mouth. He is holding a bottle of red wine in his hand, shaking slightly, and the red wine in the bottle shakes. It's Luo Wen. The guards opened their eyes wide and raised their weapons for the first time. Luo Wen ignored them and walked straight forward. Magellan, Impel Down needs you. You don't have to apologize, I am here. While talking, Luo Wen waved his hand at the guard who was in front of him, beckoning him to let the way out. Under the gaze of Luo Wen's eyes, they were shocked and retreated subconsciously. Luo Wen walked past them and picked up the key to open the cage door. However, this action stopped again. Luo Wen suddenly felt that getting in and out was too troublesome. Then, he walked in, facing the cage door. His body, an illusory moment, penetrated the cage. This scene. Sora, their pupils suddenly shrank. Especially Hollow, the bottom of my heart is extremely shocked. He fought head-on with the female ghost in white. At that time, the female ghost in white showed a physical penetration. Much like Luo Wen's current performance. This Luo Wen. Is it a man or a ghost? Kong Shen inhales deeply, and a big wave rises in his heart. He originally thought that this time, he came here to talk to someone who has something to do with ghosts. Now this idea has changed. I found it. Is it just a ghost? Luo Wen didn't care what they thought. After walking into the cell, he put down the red wine, sat on the sofa, raised Erlang's legs, and looked at Sengoku, Sora and Magellan. Are some people looking for me? Upon seeing this, empty eyelids twitched slightly. The sixth floor eternal hell is terrible. Sora, as the commander of the entire army, knows very well that even the traces of history will be erased for the prisoners who are detained. But the man in front of him seemed to be a joke in front of him. I am here to represent 5 elders, and to represent world politics. Kong said straight to the point. Hear the words. Luo Wen looked up, focusing on Kong's body. Null. Once Marshal Marine, now the commander-in-chief of the entire army, an extremely important high level in world politics, a powerful top physique expert. Letterfield, imprisoned in the deepest place, is an empty hand. Then what? Luo Wen picked up the corkscrew and opened the wine with a pop. The ghosts of the Holy Land, the ghosts of naval headquarters, what conditions do you need to be willing to solve? You said that you hate pirates. I think we are a kind of people. We don't need to be so hostile at all, as long as you can tell the solution. I can meet your conditions as much as possible. I come here with enough sincerity. I hope you can seriously consider it. Said empty and earnestly. Huh? 5 elders? Holy Land, naval headquarters? When the surrounding prisoners heard it, they exploded the pot. Everyone's eyes widened. They couldn't bear to look at Luo Wen and Kong with curiosity. Sengoku. What did Luo Wen do? They were all speaking out, shocked by the words of Sora, and wanted to take the initiative to understand. If it's empty, the sound will be clear, and eternal hell will be noisy because of it. Too many people are surprised by what Luo Wen did. Has this man turned the outside world upside down? Now. Sora and Sengoku turned a blind eye to the prisoners who were questioning each other. Their eyes were always looking at Luo Wen. Luo Wen sat on the sofa with one hand on his cheek, tilted his head and changed his posture, smiling. The ghosts of the Holy Land, and the ghosts of naval headquarters. What are you talking about? Do you want to say that the ghost has nothing to do with you? Kong said in a low voice. He didn't believe that it had nothing to do with the person in front of him. He was not sure about that, but when he saw Luo Wen go through the prison, he could not say that Luo Wen was a ghost with that strange ability. At this moment Kong is convinced that the haunting of the Holy Land and naval headquarters must have something to do with Luo Wen. Empty needs to solve the problem as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Holy Land and naval headquarters will continue. It is estimated that most of them will not be able to hide it, and the day when the real news is leaked, these people will be reduced to a big joke. I came with sincerity. The empty, old and burly body was straight, staring at Luo Wen from the door of the cage. Luo Wen. I believe these things have something to do with you. I don't think we should be hostile. I hope you will consider it seriously. Hear the words. Does this identify me? Luo Wen looked up at Kong and said in a low voice. Finished. He picked up the wine glass, sipped the poured red wine, and motioned Sengoku if they would drink it. The corner of Sengoku's mouth twitched. Normally he would not respond to the prisoner Luo Wen. But now in the empty situation, he wants to have a good relationship with Luo Wen, and he can't be ill. Immediately, Sengoku was forced to shook his head in response. Don't you drink it? It's not a good wine. Luo Wen took a sip of the wine and commented on his own. How do you feel? Sora said again, he must solve the naval headquarters in the Holy Land. I don't think so. Luo Wen put down the wine glass and raised his eyes to look at Sengoku and Sengoku outside the cage. Let's not mention what you said. Just what you said came with sincerity. I think you are not sincere. The words came out. Sengoku's face changed suddenly. Kong squinted his eyes slightly. It's not sincere yet. Marshal Marine and the commander of the whole army are here. Isn't that sincere yet? Let 5 elders come over. At the next moment, Luo Wen's voice came out of the cage. At this moment, the empty pupil shrank suddenly, but it quickly recovered. I will convey this sentence, but I hope you can think about it. Kong was silent for a moment, after saying this, turned and left. Sengoku and Magellan didn't say much, and left afterwards. The surrounding prisoners don't care about them, and they all focus on Luo Wen. At this moment, the cell wall next to Luo Wen was knocked banging, and too many people were talking. Hey, Luo Wen. Something went wrong with the Holy Land Marie Joyce and Naval Headquarters? Really? Did you do it? How did you do that? How can it be done? Although there are a group of idiot celestial dragons in the Holy Land, the defenses are so tight that even a mosquito can't fly in. Not necessarily. The old guy Kong is here, and the masked guys who died in the interrogation room. These are all very heavy. Oh. I finally understand a little bit. Luo Wen. Amazing. Unexpectedly, because of such a big move, Marie Joyce and Naval Headquarters are both in trouble. A figure lying on the wall laughed excitedly at the end, with a crazy and hideous expression on his face. This is a character who is inconsistent with world politics. Although he is not a pirate, he has had a strong feast with the world government. It is rumored that before he was arrested and put in prison, he attacked a large ship of world politics alone and killed several important officials. In that battle, Marine dispatched 5 vice admiral and continued to fight for a day and night. It was not until Aokiji Kuzan, one of the 3 admiral, arrived that he was successfully arrested. Because of this, he was imprisoned in eternal hell, erasing his existence from history. Hearing that the world's politics is crippled at this moment, this person is more excited than ever. The other side. Opposite Luo Wen's cell, Jinbei touched his chin and muttered. No wonder Sengoku and Sora are here. Of these 2 people, one represents Naval Headquarters and the other represents world government. They are the most terrifying force in the world, and both of them are here because of Luo Wen. Hear what Jinbei said. Ace's eyes flickered. Crocodile in the cell nearby noticed the changes in Ace. If you are thinking about continuing to be haunted like this, is it good news for Whitebeard, who might come to rescue you later? Crocodile tilted his head, grinning low. Hear the words. Ace fell silent. After a pause, he continued. I don't want my father to save me, it's useless by myself. At the same time, Luo Wen suddenly made a sound. The words made Ace, Jinbei, and Crocodile all raise their heads. Do you want to know what happened outside? Moment. Many people on the 6th floor saw it, and even a person in the depths opened his eyes at this moment. The location he was in was a special cell constructed entirely of sea stone. Rumor has it that this man stirred the sea before he was imprisoned and caused a terrible catastrophe. Facing the darkness, one line of sight, Luo Wen smiled lightly. The Holy Land and Naval Headquarters have some minor problems, which is indeed correct. What's the problem? Someone asked immediately. Haunted, some celestial dragons and marines want to leave these 2 places. A simple 1-sentence exit. Eternal hell, quiet in an instant. A pair of eyes widened in the dark, and there was an uncontrollable shock of error. Leave? Celestial dragons and marine are leaving their base camp? After Luo Wen said these words, he didn't care about the changes in the hearts of the people around him. At this moment, his eyes changed slightly, and the focus of his pupils spread, as if looking at a distant place. Clown buggy. Luo Wen's complexion suddenly became weird. On the other side, Sengoku and others left eternal hell. Sudden. They learned a surprising news. Originally, the clown prisoner whom Sengoku and Magellan were going to interrogate in person was suddenly besieged by other prisoners in the prison. Now they have been picked up by the guard alone. This, Sengoku was stunned. He originally planned to go for interrogation, but because of Sora's arrival, he was temporarily shelved. Why did he directly attack the crowd in a blink of an eye? But soon, another news came. The clown prisoner was attacked by the group because the clown ghost killed too many people on the 1st floor, which caused public outrage among many prisoners, and then took revenge on the clown prisoner together. This clown, is that the one Hannibal said? Magellan frowned slightly, then said to the guard who was delivering the news. Transfer this clown prisoner to the 2nd floor, whether he is a wicked ghost or not. In short, let him go to the 2nd floor to observe it. In short, he can't go to the 1st floor. Staying like this will cause riots. By then, the prisoners on the 1st floor don't know how much more they will die. Hear what Magellan said. Sengoku and Sora both nodded slightly, expressing their agreement with this treatment. The other side. Luo Wen was sitting on the sofa with an inexplicable look in his eyes. At this moment, his eyes are those of the clown ghost. At this moment, in the darkness of crimson hell on the first floor, a funny but creepy clown figure stood quietly, holding a balloon and tilting his head and laughing silently. And his eyes, seeing through the darkness, are staring at the clown Buggy who was taken away by the first tier guards. Asshole, to kill so many people, you must be locked up to the second floor, and your good days are over. The guard escorted Buggy, cursing, "It has nothing to do with me. I am not the pervert murderous clown." Buggy struggled and screamed, his nose bursting out of fright. However, the guard didn't care what Buggy said, and escorted him forward. Boom. The door to the second floor was closed heavily, and Buggy's miserable cry came through the crack of the door. Go to the second floor? All of this was seen by Luo Wen's eyes. The picture switching in his eyes changed from the first layer to eternal hell again. At this moment, there is clearly no one around, but Luo Wen is whispering to herself. Next, don't kill on the first floor, go to the second floor. A very interesting idea emerged in Luo Wen's heart. The voice fell off. The clown in the first layer of darkness grinned, and walked away quietly into the darkness, without making a sound when he walked. The direction the clown walks is the second level wild beast hell. At the same time, the other side. Buggy, who had been locked up on the second floor, was leaping at the door of the cage, clutching the iron railing and shouting miserably. I didn't do it, it really wasn't me. Those people who have brain problems don't know why they came to beat me, I am the victim. However, the hard-hearted guard didn't care what Buggy was saying. After making sure that Buggy's cage door was locked, he turned around and swayed away. Oh my god, really shut me down to the second floor in order to. When Buggy saw the guard leave, his body suddenly softened, and he collapsed to the ground, wanting to cry without tears. Roar. Suddenly, a roar of a beast, like a thunder, exploded in Buggy's ears. He looked up suddenly. I saw outside the cage door, a pair of huge scarlet beast eyes staring at him coldly. I don't know when a blue lion came to the door, and a big head was facing Buggy, if it wasn't for the iron railing. Can bite off his head in one bite. Ah. Buggy almost freaked out. Rolling and crawling retracted into the corner, holding his legs trembling. He knew how terrifying the second floor was. There were terrible beasts everywhere. He had heard of how terrifying the beasts here were when he was on the first floor. It was frightening. Even Buggy heard that. The second-tier beasts will eat some arrogant prisoners. I didn't do it, let me go back to the first level, I don't want to be eaten by the lion and become a papa. The Buggy ghost cried and howled, however. The prisoners around Buggy were already numb. The lion suddenly appeared at the door of the cell, and did not let them fluctuate much. They sat on the ground obediently like puppets. Mom. These people are all scared into fools, I won't be fools too. Buggy sniffed, and his desire to return to the first level became stronger. Just then, Buggy froze suddenly. In the blink of an eye just now, he hurriedly saw another, familiar figure in the dark, which looked very much like him, and disappeared in a flash. Huh. What? When Buggy's eyes widened again and looked closely, nothing was seen again. But the next second, Buggy reacted and rushed to the iron railing, ignoring the beast standing at the door, shouting in horror. Help. 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 Buggy knew about the haunted things in the prison. The moment he saw this figure that looked a lot like him, all the things that couldn't be understood in his mind were connected. Buggy is horrified. The figure that disappeared just now must be the culprit who caused him to be locked in the second floor. In other words, that figure is the pervert murderous clown? Buggy's nose is all down. Ghost, it's a ghost. The ghost is here, the pervert killer clown you said is coming to the second level. Buggy yelled in horror. Stop shouting. The inmate next to Buggy glanced impatiently at Buggy. If you keep shouting, this lion should rush in and eat you. This sentence came out. The scared Buggy closed her mouth. She didn't dare to make a sound anymore, her face turned pale. The second floor, which had been messy because of Buggy's arrival, suddenly quieted down. Hearing Buggy became quiet, the prisoner who was talking was satisfied, turned around and went back to sleep. And in the dark that no one noticed, the clown tilted his head and was staring at the sleeping prisoner beside Buggy. On his pale face with heavy makeup, a weird and hideous smile appeared, silent. The night passed quietly, and it was the next morning. Sengoku and Sora remain in Impel Down, and haven't left for the time being. Kong is waiting for Luo Wen to consider, hoping that Luo Wen can give cooperation intentions. However, I asked again this morning. This time Luo Wen still did not give an answer. It was still yesterday's rhetoric. Now, They are still here, mainly to help Magellan find the girl ghost in the toilet. The current situation is very delicate. Magellan went into the toilet and shit. Sora and Sengoku sat outside the corridor of the toilet, each wearing a gas mask and waiting dryly. I don't know how long in the past, Magellan's grunting spit in the toilet did not stop for a moment, but the toilet ghost never appeared. Just then, a guard hurried over and shouted Magellan's name. What's wrong? Sengoku looked. Yesterday. More than 20 prisoners died on the second floor. The guards were still in shock. So many died? The beast ate it? Sengoku frowned. However, the answer was beyond Sengoku's expectation. The prisoners who died yesterday did not die in the mouth of a beast, they were killed by something else. Next, the guard said a word that caused both Sengoku and Sora to shrink their pupils. The clown in the prison said it was a ghost. The red nose who was locked in the second floor yesterday. Kong asked these words almost immediately. Right. The guard nodded. There seems to be a problem with that clown. The prisoner may have been killed by him. Someone saw a clown killing someone. Sora and Sengoku looked at each other, and both of them were silent for a while. Take us over. Sengoku got up and took off the gas mask from his face. It now seems that there is something more worth doing than sitting dry in front of the toilet and waiting for Magellan to poop. Soon after Sengoku and Sora left, there was a sound of toilet flushing from the toilet, and Magellan walked out comfortably and couldn't help letting out a long breath. That's so cool. With Sengoku and Kong's eye, he can pull Baba with peace of mind, and he is not afraid of the toilet ghost children to interfere with him. It's great, Sora and Sengoku, and you guys. Magellan smiled and sighed sincerely. However, the next second, Magellan's smile was awkward. Sengoku and Sora, who were sitting at the door of the toilet waiting to catch ghosts together, disappeared. I glanced around. No one can be seen. The ghost catcher is gone. The ghost hasn't been caught yet. What's the situation? Magellan's eyes widened and looked around. Could he be killed? On the other side, Sengoku and Sora, who left first, have already reached the second floor. As soon as I arrived, I walked directly to the door of Buggy's cell. I'm not a murderer. I was wronged. I saw the pervert murderous clown they said, and disappeared like a ghost. That's not me. Buggy hurriedly explained to Sengoku and Sora, wishing to wash himself for nothing, so that he could move out of the second floor and return to the first floor. While listening to Buggy, Sengoku thought this guy was a bit familiar, but he didn't care too much. After listening to Buggy, he turned his head and stared at Kong. What do you think should be handled? Sora didn't answer for the time being, but looked at Buggy and asked. You said yesterday that you saw a ghost like a clown in the shadow corner. And you saw him next to your bed last night? You fainted? Right. Buggy nodded quickly. You didn't kill those people? Sora asked again. Yes. Uncle Buggy swears to God, it's really not me. Hurry up and protect me. I suspect I'm being targeted by a ghost. Help me. Buggy's legs were weak when he spoke. He was really scared. I dared not go to bed all night yesterday. I always felt that someone was staring at him. Finally, when it was almost dawn in the middle of the night, he finally fell asleep, but when he was half dreaming and half awake, he dreamed that ghosts came to the door. As a result, I woke up suddenly, the moment I sat up from the bed. There really is a clown-like ghost staring at him on the bedside, and still grinning. Buggy fainted in shock. After listening to Buggy's words, Sora's old eyes flickered. The person targeted by a ghost. Sora is no stranger to this statement. Buggy felt empty, the old guy's eyes were not right. Damn. He wants to curse. But they didn't dare to speak. The two people standing in front of him now were heavyweights that Captain Roger must value. Sengoku, empty. At this moment, Magellan trot up from the corner. There was venom and sweat on his forehead, and he was really shocked when he saw that Sora and Sengoku were not there. Fortunately, the guards at the back told him that Sora and Sengoku had come to the second floor, and then they also learned about the clown, so they hurried over. Buggy blinked, looking at the three people in front of me blankly. They suddenly turned around, seeming to be talking about something, but their voices were deliberately lowered. Coupled with the roar of beasts from time to time here, Buggy didn't hear a word clearly. What happened next? Buggy was very happy. I don't know what the three of Sengoku said. Anyway, after they finished speaking, they opened the cage door and called the guards to bring Buggy out. Buggy almost didn't laugh. That's cool, you can stop on the second floor, you can finally go back to the first floor. Wait? Buggy suddenly felt something was wrong. Oh my god, this is not the way back to the first floor, what are you doing? Help. What are you going to do to this, uncle? Ah, you want to take me to the third floor. I don't want to go. You are fascinated by ghosts. You are fascinated by ghosts. Why should I go to the third floor? Buggy's miserable howl actually overwhelmed the roar of the beast in a short moment. Listening to Buggy howling like a pig, Magellan's eyes flickered. Just now, they discussed it. The first level of haunting is basically certain. The guards have called in to monitor. Buggy has indeed been in the cell and has never been out. There is no possibility of murder. The prison was haunted by ghosts, but now there is another clown ghost, which gives them a headache. Although this is a prison, prisoners cannot die casually. After all, a prison is not a shooting range, and imprisonment means imprisonment, not the death penalty. It is precisely because of this that Shiryu, who abused and murdered the prisoner, was put in confinement. And the death of the prisoner is not the most critical. The most important thing is that a lot of guards are dead now, and the prisons that are haunted by ghosts are panic. In the past 2 days, they have seen several resignation letters, and even some cadres want to resign. The haunting must be resolved as soon as possible, or if this continues, there will only be prisoners left in the prison. Now, they set their target on the clown ghost. Get rid of the more threatening clowns first. Therefore, regardless of whether there is a problem with Buggy, they all regard it as having a problem, and first send Buggy to the third floor. According to Sengoku's observation, this pirate prisoner named Buggy does have something to do with the clown, but he is far from Luo Wen, who is on the 6th floor. This guy's performance is almost scared to pee. But what is certain is that Buggy's appearance is indeed a bit similar to the clown, and he comes to the 2nd level, and the clown also follows the 2nd level. It is impossible to say that there is no relationship. Just right. Sengoku feels that they can also use this opportunity to draw inferences from one another and try to see if they can find some useful information from the clown ghost. Eternal hell. Ding. Koro, the 2nd-tier prisoner, is frightened. Frightened point +1. Ding. Clown Buggy is frightened. Frightened point +3. Ding. Luo Wen heard countless system prompts. Especially Buggy. One person almost contributed 50 startle points. This guy is too easy to brush. Host. Luo Wen. Combat power. 170 million. Do not use the power of ghosts. Scare point. 1312. After this period of time, the combat effectiveness has increased by 20 million, and the startle point has also returned to more than 1,000 points. What's the matter of exchanging this time? Luo Wen smiled and opened the system mall. He now understands a little bit why some girls can go shopping for several hours on the escape insurance without buying things. Because of this feeling. It's really sour and refreshing. As soon as he turned on the system to exchange for the light screen, Luo Wen saw the familiar props. Combat strength boosting capsule. This time, Luo Wen got 5 pills in one change. The 500 startled points disappeared. 5 small blue pills lay quietly on Luo Wen's palm. Without hesitation. Eat it in one bite. In an instant, the strength in Luo Wen's muscles increased exponentially, and his combat power soared, and even his breath became terrifying, like a beast awakening. Boom. Luo Wen threw a fist, the air burst through the fist, and the sonic boom was piercing and roaring. Combat power. 530 million. Combat strength boosting capsule. The effect is still significant. Inside the cell opposite. Crocodile suddenly raised his head when he heard the movement, and happened to see Luo Wen blasting the air with his fist. This guy, Crocodile's eyelids twitched. Luo Wen closed his fist here and exhaled a bit of muddy breath. He ignored the opinions of other people, and continued to look at the system to see if there was anything worth redeeming next. Huh? Corpse change? After pulling the mall page, Luo Wen saw something of interest. Corpse control. You can use ghost energy to reawaken the dead and turn them into lonely ghosts. You can control up to 100 imps at the same time, and the price is 500 scare points. This thing is interesting. Luo Wen grinned and chose to redeem on the spot. Just right. There are many dead people in Impel Down. If this skill is used, I am afraid that it will really make Impel Down a haunted hell. No, the dead in the prison can be, but they can be changed into the dead in other places. Suddenly, Luo Wen felt something in his heart, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked in one direction. That is, the direction of the Holy Land Marie Joys. Next moment, Luo Wen closed his eyes slightly. His consciousness was falling, sinking into a cold place. The night fell and enveloped the earth. Holy Land Marie Joys. In a dark corner that no one can perceive. A little girl in white clothes covering her body with black hair and splitting her face appeared silently, standing in the dark as if there was nothing. Her black hair was drooping without wind, revealing a pair of lifeless, dead eyes. Sudden. Xiao Zhenzi raised her hand and rubbed her chest. Is this a woman's body? Xiao Zhenzi's pale lips opened slightly, but her tone of voice was very similar to Luo Wen. That's right. Luo Wen at this time has already possessed Xiao Zhenzi's body. Previously, Luo Wen gave orders to Xiao Zhenzi to see the outside world through Xiao Zhenzi's perspective. This time is different. Luo Wen wants to control the corpse change, so instead he takes possession of himself to control Xiao Zhenzi's body to release the corpse control. Actually, this ability has been possessed since Luo Wen awakened the system. It's just that Luo Wen doesn't like it very much. I accidentally tried to possess Osadako once before, but he quit the possessed state after a short period of time. Luo Wen always felt that when he was possessed, he was really a ghost. It's good to be in love with humans and ghosts. Ghosts and ghosts are not so good before they are over. Luo Wen converges his thoughts. Xiao Sadako's body who wasn't quite used to the activity. Then, Xiao Zhenzi raised her head, her dark eyes rolled under the scattered black hair. Target. The cemetery of celestial dragons in Marie Joyce. Saint Gregory has been very annoying lately, and the haunting of the Holy Land is panic. Although he does not have ghost fingerprints on his body, he will always worry about being entangled by ghosts when he sleeps. This is precisely because of this irritable mood. Gregory Saint vents more frequently. Applause can be heard outside his room almost every night. Nowadays, Saint Gregory chose a beautiful maid again, half of her clothes were taken off, and she was about to vent her luck at the moment. He looked out of the window, his movements stopped, and he gave a shock. Huh? Saint Gregory rubbed his eyes vigorously. Just a quick glance, he seemed to vaguely see that there was a white shadow dangling from the window. Curtain? Saint Gregory is suspicious, but in the next second, the white shadow appeared again, and it stopped outside the window. Quietly floating, drifting with the wind. Saint Gregory rubbed his eyes. Now it's too dark to see clearly, but a big white cloth can still be seen clearly. Whose curtains are floating out? Go and pull the curtains away and disturb my sex. Saint Gregory was about to reprimand the servant. Next second, the curtain outside the window turned his head. Under the fluttering black hair, the gloomy face was sideways, and a pair of terrifying ghost eyes stared at Saint Gregory who was about to applaud for love. Ghost, ghost, ghost. Saint Gregory suddenly softened. It was not a curtain at all, but a ghost in a white dress. The falling black hair covers the face, blending into the darkness and can't see clearly. That's why I think it's a curtain. Ghost. CP0, who was guarding outside Gregory's holy gate, rushed in when he heard the screams inside the house. Moment. A glimpse of it. They saw that outside the window, a white shadow flashed away, and a sense of inexplicability enveloped their hearts, making their scalp numb. Is that a ghost? CP0 ran in cold sweat, rushing to the window and looking towards the thick night. I saw it. In the darkness of Marie Joyce. A petite white shadow, walking around, seems to be jumping and floating, appearing here in the blink of an eye, and then appearing hundreds of meters away in the next second, which is strange and frightening. Go, go. CP0 watched for a long time, until the female ghost figure disappeared completely, and then recovered. Unknowingly the cold sweat has wetted the clothes. This picture is too horrible, as if a female ghost will appear in front of her eyes in the next second. Fortunately, this kind of thing did not happen. CP0 checked the physical condition of Saint Gregory and found that he was not killed and there were no ghost fingerprints on his body. This celestial dragons may not be able to applaud love anymore. At this moment, Saint Gregory sat on the bed blankly. The little friend was drooping and listless. It seems to be frightened stupid with him. At this time, Xiao Zhenzi, who was hopping around in the dark, was moving at an incredible speed. Ding. Celestial Dragons Gregory Saint is scared point +1. Ding. CP0, Luo Wen blinked, surprised. He didn't expect that he would see such an explosive scene. Celestial dragons really played with flowers. Tisk tisk. There were a lot of interesting toys on the bed just now. Luo Wen changed his mind. Fortunately, he saw it. If Xiao Zhenzi saw it, wouldn't it pollute Xiao Zhenzi's eyes? I thought to myself. The cemetery has arrived. The pale moonlight filled the sky. The cemetery at night is terrible, the cold wind whizzing tombstones, the surrounding trees swaying, making rustling noises. The timid people may not dare to approach. This kind of sound is too much like a ghost whispering, making people creepy. Suddenly, a white figure appeared, ghostly and invisibly drifting past tombstones, flashing and unpredictable, like a ghost walking in the world. Wherever she passed, the wind hung up, and the sound of the wind became a ghost cry, which made people creepy. Finally, the white shadow stopped in front of several new tombstones that had just been established.
It's you, Luo Wen whispered. Xiao Junzi raised her slender hand and brushed it lightly in front of the tombstone. A gloomy ghost aura emerged, pressing across the tomb like a black cloud, seeming to blend into the loess, disappearing in the blink of an eye.
Finish it all. Xiao Zhenzi's figure faded, as if disappearing from this world, silently. The night passed quickly. The bright moon was replaced by the scorching sun and came the next day. Everything is so normal, there is no change in the whole day, until evening. The last ray of sunlight between the sun and the earth disappeared, the moment the sun sets in the west. Suddenly a strange movement appeared in the cemetery of the Holy Land, like the fine sound of soil being turned. Someone is destroying the tomb. The tomb guard rushed angrily at the sound. He was very angry. Someone drove the grave of the noble celestial dragons. But the next moment, the anger on the grave guard's face solidified. A dead man's hand drilled through the soil and stretched out of the grave. What? The sound of panic pierced the sky. The tomb guard fell to the ground in horror. He was attracted by the fine sound of rolling soil, and what he saw was this shocking scene. At this moment, the fingernails of the hands that broke out of the ground were cracked, and the black skin was chapped, but there was no blood flowing out. The tomb guard has seen many corpses, and he can be sure that it is definitely the hand of a dead man. What's more frightening is the name written on the tombstone of this tomb that has been drilled out of the hands is the Loxani Palace that has just died in the haunted place in the past 2 days. Now, it just so happened that the sun was completely set on the top of the mountain. The Holy Land Marie Joys is shrouded in darkness. Suddenly, the pupils of the tombkeeper shrank again. Above the cracked tomb, a strong black gas suddenly appeared, and a figure sit up from the tomb. Is that the dead Roxani Palace? Her complexion was pale and black, her eyes were bleeding, her eyes turned white, and her eyes were full of bloodshot eyes, like a corpse strangled to death alive. You cheated the corpse. The tomb guard couldn't hold it anymore, his eyes went dark and he fainted on the spot. The Loxani Palace, which looked like a dead soul, did not even look at the tombkeeper who fell on the ground. He floated out of the cemetery with a dull expression and drifted away. But in the cemetery, the hands that broke through the ground still kept their original posture. The corpse of the Roxani Palace quietly lay in the coffin, and the eyes that had been closed opened again, empty, looking far away. Where? This scene happened everywhere in the cemetery. One by one tombs broke, the corpses sat up or stood upright, the soul quietly came out of the body, and turned into wandering lonely ghosts. Ghost. Celestial dragons, who had visited in the cemetery, were so frightened that they ran away. Someone else rolled out of the sedan chair and fell to the ground in a terrible way, with his head bled and embarrassed. Far away, in the darkness between the woods, Xiao Zhenzi stood quietly. Ding. Tombkeeper Crow is frightened, .+1. Ding. Celestial Dragon Saint Ferdinand is scared, scared .+3. Ding. At this moment, a bit of shock was rushing in Luo Wen's mind. He stood among the trees, watching from a distance the ghost of Loxane Palace that had crawled out of the tomb and was about to leave the cemetery. The kid is convenient for me to be scared, but it's easy to die, but... When Luo Wen said this, he paused for a while, narrowed his eyes slightly, and looked at the graves that broke out in the distance. Suddenly, a gust of gloomy wind blew past, covering the stars and the moon, and shattering the shade of the trees. However, the victory lies in the number. There was a chuckle. In the woods, that ghostly white shadow melted into the darkness, disappearing a little bit. And further back, a group of ghosts with dark faces and hideous expressions stood on the tombstone with their heads lowered. They were densely packed with ghosts everywhere, making their scalp numb, and they strongly wanted to escape. This will, the Holy Land of Celestial Dragons, not far from becoming a haunted Holy Land. The little girl's whispering reverberated in the woods. Obviously no one exists, but it sounds faintly, like whispering softly in the ear, which makes people's hair creepy.